What is up, guys? Welcome back to Truth and Transparency. Here we are. Bryan Kohberger, Brent Turvey speaks with the Kohbergers, with Kohberger's family, and the defense insider case information. Let's talk about it. We're jumping right into it. Boom. Brent Turvey sits down for a 1v1. Did Bryan Kohberger's defense push the guilty plea?
There's a number of ways that I reacted to it, but my first initial reaction as a person, as somebody who works in the justice system and observes it, was relief. I was relieved, mainly because of the way of what he said in his filing. It was some important facts and details came out that really haven't been covered at all. I mean, I want to take a moment to talk to you like a person, like you're a human being. I'm a human, you're a human. We both have human emotions and have human responses to these things. And it's been, the word I would use is disgusting. It's been disgusting the way that most of the topics around this case have been talked about and shared and even ruminated and theorized over. And
all right, guys, welcome in. Brent Turvey is going to attempt to humanize Bryan Kohberger's family, Bryan Kohberger, this process, and show that this process has been anything but fair, respectable, and he's going to show his outright disgust with the media. So let's just be real. That's where this is going to be headed. He's going to drop some bombshells that people would consider bombshells, but I don't think that we can say that they're bombshells because this is all stuff that we've known about. Okay. It's called a reality check. So maybe my title should be called Reality Check. You know what I'm saying? Reality check for mainstream media. Because this is all this is. This is a reality check for mainstream media. That's how I look at this interview.
I'm grateful to be in this space with you because I know you're not like that. You're more of a facts and law, and that's how I prefer to meet this case because it's more productive that way. So really great relief.
For sure.
Primarily because so many things happen in that plea that people have only speculated about and continue to speculate about. And the first one is that no one seems to be saying out loud, which is that Ann Taylor and her legal team were fired. They were just fired across the board. There's no getting away from that, what happened there.
When you say fired, you mean that when he filed his petition, he did it on his own. So therefore, he obviously didn't ask them to do it. And then he asked for other counsel to be appointed to him. So is that what you're referring to when you say fired?
I don't know how we can see it any other way. That's the other problem we have with this.
No, I agree. That's just what I'm, that's what I'm asking. I agree with that. I just want to be clear. So
okay. So Brent Turvey's like, I'm really excited about this. And what I'm excited about is that start talking about it. Bryan Kohberger fired his attorneys. Fired them. And why isn't anybody talking about that aspect of it? So put that down in a column. Is that Bryan Kohberger, by doing this, he's fired his attorneys. And so why isn't this a big deal to people? Or I should say, why isn't this being explained when they want to talk and do all these shows about everything?
People understand. Yeah,
exactly. For those of us who work these kinds of cases, I mean, I do investigative cases for law enforcement. I do cases for prosecutors, and I also do cases for defense attorneys and civil attorneys. And then I also do post-conviction cases, quite a few of them, to review things done after the conviction has already occurred. And I think it's just interesting how people are tripping over themselves to try to describe this in another way, to try to give some leeway to what's happening or create some sort of intrigue or mystery about it. Kohberger laid it out pretty clearly what the issues were. And so my sense is relief that he is actually able to speak for himself, as opposed to being suppressed by Ann Taylor. Ann Taylor no longer holds the privilege. The privilege is his, and he gets to decide what he wants to say.
Right there. That's going to be a reoccurring theme here in this 30-minute segment. It is Brent Turvey's opinion, and his opinion is coming from his personal knowledge and dealing with this case. But Ann Taylor has been suppressing Bryan Kohberger. Like, Bryan Kohberger can now finally speak. And because Ann Taylor has put a muzzle on him and his family, and you're going to play good puppy here.
And that has not been true since the plea. And that's the other thing. It you want, we can go right into what the plea is and what he claims if you want. But so my first reaction was relief, and now it seems like the real work might actually get done. Those are my sentiments.
Well, before we, and I definitely want to get into the plea, but before we do that, let me ask you this. So, for the regular person who has no exposure to the criminal justice system, who hasn't sat in courtrooms the way you have or I have, we watch Bryan Kohberger sit in a court, right? And we watch the judge ask Bryan Kohberger a series of questions that he responded to. And we also saw that Bryan Kohberger filled out a piece of paper that basically, said, I am pleading guilty of my own free will. And, I'm satisfied with my counsel. So talk to me a little bit about how now, he's going to say, I want to withdraw all of this. And let's kind of go through that in terms of the plea. And, because to me, Bryan Kohberger does not seem like a dumb guy, right? Like, we're seeing his filings, we're seeing what he's written. And I'm kind of wondering how we reconcile this idea that he is an intelligent person.
That's funny, Donna. That's exactly opposite of what Chris Como is saying on air with Brian Enton, that he is a dumb guy.
Was college educated. He was a teacher. He was a teacher's assistant. He was taking classes. And now, now we're hearing that he has written things to the court that are intelligent. So talk to me about how we reconcile this idea that he got up before a court, said all these things, and now he's saying, wait, this wasn't right. Like, why did he wait until now to bring those things up rather than say, I'm not going to plead guilty in the first place?
I'll just say is this: anybody who's questioning this process has obviously never been a criminal defendant charged with murder, and certainly not charged with capital murder. So second guessing this is kind of, it's one of those things that I find really unpalatable, because I've done this. I've worked probably 25, 30 death penalty cases in my career and testified to many of them. And what attorneys tell clients to do is shut up, don't make a face, don't respond, don't react, and above all, don't talk. Look straight ahead or take notes. That's the instruction given to every client, every defense client ever. All right. Whether or not they take that advice is something else. So from the perspective of Ann Taylor, from her legal team, he's a good client, doing what he's told, trying to maintain that stoicism, which cannot be judged. Because as you can see from this case, as I said at the outset of this interview, the response of the public has really been our worst selves. We've been our worst selves in responding to this, smacking our chops over the deaths of these young girls, making light, making jokes, making fake AI videos to purport the side or the other. It's been very grotesque. It's been a menagerie of the grotesque, in my opinion. He has been a good client. He's been doing what he's told.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with Brent Turvey. The AI bullshit. Fuck yeah, Turvey. Love it. Love it. Fuck yeah.
He has not been talking, as he's been told. He's been letting Ann Taylor and her legal team talk for him. And as you and I both know, up until the weekend before the plea, it was all, I'm innocent. I want to take this to trial. I want to take this to court. Now, the question is, why would he then get up there? Well, first of all, he didn't allocute. That's the first thing. The second thing, and it's clear from his filing, is he was told two things. One, you need to confess or to get a plea to take the death penalty off the table. That's what he was told by his attorneys. Bad advice across the board, but that was the advice he was given. Then the second thing that he was told, according to his filing, was that it's okay to lie about whether or not you did it, because that will set legal things in motion, and then we will start to do appeals and we'll start to do other things around that. But this will give us time. This is a time-saving device. That's what's heavily implied in his filing. So why would he do it? One, because he was told to, and then two, he was told it would not be of legal significance. Now, whether or not you and I would believe that, if I had been in the room in that conversation, I would have said, what the f are you talking about? You don't tell people to support perjury, knock that shit off right now. That's what I would have done. But I wasn't in the room. I have no, and I happen to know now who was in the room, and I know exactly what was said. And it comports with the meeting that Ann Taylor had with us, which caused me to get up and walk out, which is that she basically said, I couldn't get him to take the plea initially. I couldn't get him to do it. So what did I do? I went and I enlisted his family. I told him he had to do it. I gave him a horror show of what death row was going to be like. I told him what it was going to be like if he was, just in there as a regular inmate, not on death row. And it took more than a day and a half, maybe 2 days, to get the family to convince him to take the plea. So
now think about this. If you're Kaylee's parents, okay? If you don't start seeing, because they said it on the Sean Hannity show, that they come out and say, oh, we just found out that the family of Bryan Kohberger knew about all of this way before we did. Notice how that just aired? I would love to know when Brent Turvey did this interview. I would love to know the date of this. I would love to know then the date of when the Gonsalveses did their interview. Just with Sean. Because just because this has popped up today doesn't mean that this was, recorded. That's why I asked a very important question yesterday in my interview with Chris Whitcomb. I said, how many interviews have you done since Bryan Kohberger has taken the plea? Or has not taken the plea, but has petitioned against the plea deal? Very important question I asked.
Why did he do it? I mean, in my head, I've seen this kind of scenario play out before, but only with extremely unethical attorneys who don't want to go to trial for whatever reason.
I'm wondering why you wouldn't want to go to trial. Like, this was not a financial situation, right? The Kohbergers were not paying for his legal defense. The taxpayers of the state of Idaho were paying, so their bills were being paid. They work for a public defender's office, which obviously they are paid. So, and this is not a case where, I don't know, I think the majority of the public were expecting anybody to win. So I guess my question is, what do you really have to lose? And yeah, okay, the death penalty is one area of conversation, right? We can talk about the death penalty, but I know, and hopefully Bryan Kohberger understood that just because the state asks for the death penalty doesn't mean if you lose at trial, they're going to impose it on you, right? That is something that a jury decides after the fact. And, you can present mitigating evidence and things of that nature. And your mother can get up and talk about how awful it would be to know that her son is being put to death. And so there are ways to fight against the death penalty. So that was not a foregone conclusion if he were to go to trial and lose. So I guess I'm wondering, like, what do you think? I've always said as a lawyer, I will try anything, right? I am not in the business of trying to convince clients to take pleas. I, of course, have conversations with clients when offers are made to them, because that is our ethical obligation to do so. We must convey any offers made to clients. But in 26 years of doing this, I have never twisted anybody's arm. And I say to them, you live with the consequence of your decision. You want me to go in there and fight for you? I'll fight for you. So what do you think, what do you think they had to lose here by going to trial? I mean, they fought pretty hard throughout the pendency of the case. They obviously hired experts to try to put them in a position that was better at trial. So I'm just wondering, like, what do you think it was ultimately that she just didn't want to fight? Because frankly, the fight that was going on, as long as it was a fight. The trial aspect of it isn't really that difficult once you're prepared. So I'm just wondering what you think happened here.
I have some speculations, but first let me just say, Donna, I wish you had been there. I wish you had been in the room. I wish you had given that advice. That was not, he was not getting that advice. That's the first thing. So one, he had no advocates for him in that room. He had only people that wanted him to plea out because they didn't want to go to trial. Two, he didn't have all the information about all the exculpatory evidence that we had found. He didn't know that. He didn't know what the defense team had uncovered. And it's not me by myself. None of this stuff, according to his filing and according to other things that I'm aware of, he wasn't provided any of the defense reports. He didn't.
And there you have it. That's what I asked. I said that a long time ago. I said, we can go back and we can pull out the records and talk about the fact of like what Bryan Kohberger was given. And do you remember when Ann Taylor said that Bryan's not as active as he once was before? I know for a fact that statement was made before any of the expert reports were filed, because everything was filed under seal. Okay. And so to be, you're supposed to be involved in your defense. He wasn't involved, what seems like, at all, to the point that he didn't even know that Brent Turvey was on the case. Again, I'm curious of how much, I say it all the time. Do we think that this guy is just saying shit? He has his whole career on the line, right? I'm choosing to believe 16 expert reports. Not him. Okay. I read all 16 expert reports from the defense. I read that every single expert report that was done by the defense, every single one of the experts put that they had nothing to go off of, that the state did not provide any information. So they didn't have like an expert report that was in that they had to like go up against for the majority of them, like almost all of them, maybe except for like maybe two. That's unheard of. So I don't believe that all of those experts were lying when they put that in their report. And that's what Ann Taylor was having a problem with. Like, what's going on here? Why aren't you holding them to the standard, Hitler? They have to have their reports in if you're disclosing them as an expert. Like, why are we putting our expert reports in first? Like, that's not how this works. There was never any opinions by any of these experts. It was just, the prosecution side was like, hey, these are these people that are going to testify and be labeled as an expert. Well, what's their opinion? Like, what are they testifying to? Like, what's going on? You know? And it's go through the files if you don't believe it, you know? But we just didn't hear any of that. That was never, this case was never being properly, I shouldn't say, when I say properly, it wasn't being fairly, which is proper in my point, in my opinion. If I'm going to, if I'm going to report on something, why aren't I reporting on both sides? The mainstream media does not report on both sides in any criminal case. You do not get it. You do not get it. And so when anyone wants to say, like, why do you give like MSM such a hard time? Because they fucking suck. Because they should not be doing my thinking. Give me all the material. Make it available. And if I understand you can't be live for 7 hours, but you're going to make the information available to me. If you want to talk about something, then post it on your little stupid website. Let me see the information that you want to summarize in 5 minutes. I want the material. I want to think for myself. But what the news does and what the media is doing, the mainstream media does, they want to think for you. And that's what I have a problem with. That's what every single person have a problem with. I'm not asking you to think for me. Talk about both sides, give me, and then link the information and I'll read it. But we don't get that. So this entire case, the entire time, and it all started with Bill Thompson, spread this PCA far and wide. It was all lies. And none of these people will come out and say it. They still to this day will not come out and say that the PCA was all lies. It is all lies. Cy Ray will even tell you it's all lies.
I didn't even know I existed until I went on a podcast. And of course, it's not me
Well,
by
that's a
myself.
problem.
None of this stuff, according to his filing and according to other things that I'm aware of, he wasn't provided any of the defense reports. He didn't even know I existed until I went on a podcast. So that's its own little separate problem.
And we know
I'm
that because he told somebody that, or how do we know that? Because if that's the case,
I'll
that's
disclose something that I have not disclosed yet, which I think is important to know. And that is that after I did Queens of Custody on your podcast, the family reached out to me and like, who the hell are you? And what are you doing on this case?
The Queens of Custody. You know, you had one job, Turvey, to get our name right. Do you think that the Queens of Custody are losing their load right now? How dare you? Ooh, karma is so pretty. You guys, fucking laughable. Give it up for Kristen and the girls, Sam and Ron. Like, hell yeah. You think they're crying over there? No, they're not. Fucking love it. Absolutely just love that moment right there. Again, one more time for the cheap seats.
know that. Because if that's the case,
I'll
that's
disclose
horrific.
something that I have not disclosed yet, which I think is important to know. And that is that after I did Queens of Custody on your podcast, the family reached out to me and like, who the hell are you? And what are you doing on this case? And why haven't we heard of all this stuff before? And then I immediately like, okay, well, let's talk. And then I handed them off to people who had legal minds, which I do not. So I was like,
Sure.
I feel your pain. I understand what you're saying. The next step has to be legal steps that I.
And what he means by that is I have to get you an attorney. You guys need attorneys, okay? Right there. Can you believe that? Now, let me give you some insider info that I have just from the Chris Watts case. Not that this is anything the same, but this specific situation, okay. The public defender's office in Denver, well, it was out of whatever, the Frederick, Colorado. But then I think they had, whoever the hell they had ended up doing it. They flew, the public defender's office people flew from Colorado to North Carolina to go and talk to Chris's parents and sister. Just show up. What? First of all, you're Chris Watts' attorneys. What are you doing flying out? They wanted to make sure that they did not go out and get, a private representation. They sat down the family and told to stay on this case so they could stay on this case back in 2018. Flew out there to say, like, listen, we have unlimited funds. Okay. We can get all of the stuff done. You're not going to be able to afford it. We can best represent him. They flew out to freaking North Carolina, sat down his sister, his mom, and his dad. And like, was like, because there was talks about his mom goes out publicly and says, I'm looking to try to get, a really good attorney for my son. That's what the mom said. Now, Chris's mom. And then what they did right before the plea deal, same thing with Chris, they flew them the family and they told each and every one of the family members, if you so much as say to Chris anything about this plea deal, the little phone call that you're having in person, that you're sitting through the glass with, we're shutting it down. If you try to talk Chris out of this, like wild shit. Okay. So immediately when he started talking about this, like, as I'm watching this, I was just like, it was immediate, like, flashback to 2018, 19 and 20. And I was just like, geez, holy shit. This isn't how it's supposed to be. You're not supposed to use people's families to you could say, like, coerce. Okay. I think that's the wording he even used, but this is why it's a conflict of interest to me. How can the state both try to put you in 6 feet deep and also say, I'm going to have your back? You know what I mean? How, when you just say that, how does that not just, when you say it, say, oh my God, that's a conflict of interest. The state's trying to kill you, but then the state's also saying, but hey, we can defend you and we're going to fight for your life. And that's exactly what that is, though. We're going to fight for your life. We're not going to fight for your freedom. We're going to fight for your life. And that's different. I don't want someone fighting for my life. I want you fighting for my fucking freedom. There's a difference. Those two things are different. And that's why I believe in my heart of hearts, the way that you change this is, listen, if you want to kill somebody, okay, awesome. Then we, the taxpayers, have to agree that the government cannot try to kill us and protect us at the same time. We have to at least understand that. And if anybody thinks that that's an oxymoron, it's an oxymoron to me that you think that those two things can be accomplished by the same entity. If you're going to go out there and try to kill somebody, and the government wants to kill you, the government cannot be the people that then try to protect you and save your life, fight for your freedom. No, what we as taxpayers and the citizens of this country need to say is that if you want to kill us as a defendant, then we need to pay, and the tax money that we're already paying needs to go, though, to a private fucking attorney. Okay, it's going to go to a private defense attorney. It is not going to go to, we have to come to grips with this. It cannot go to the public defender's office, okay? That's not where our tax money should be spent for that purpose. And it's because it's a conflict of interest. The same entity cannot be saying they're trying to kill you and save you. It doesn't make sense. And I don't want somebody saving my life. Like, I want you fighting for my freedom, right? If I'm saying I'm innocent, I want you to fight for my freedom. Not I'm here to save your life. It's a totally two different things. And that's the big thing for me, is that this is logic. I would never want to be represented by people, by the same entity that's trying to kill me. So, and I think that we, the people, need to look at that I need to say, yeah, there's something wrong here. And so either we, the people, say we're not going to have the death penalty anymore. Okay. But it's asinine. Okay. So I don't want to hear when someone says like, I'm here to save your life, or, my job is to save your life. Exactly. And that would be a plea deal. A plea deal saves my life. I'm not a fan, and I do not believe in the death penalty. I've made that clear on my channel, but I've also said why. And it's because of what I just explained right here, right now. I don't think these are not fair circumstances. There's nothing fair about it. And there's nothing fair or just or right for us to put lawyers in positions to try to gamble with somebody else's life and ask them, hey, well, they are giving me a plea deal. Okay, I have to try to talk you into taking a plea deal? No. But yet the reason I have to do that is because I'm death penalty certified and I have to follow my board guidelines and blah, blah, blah bullshit. That needs to change. So where does it change? How does it change? It changes by, reform policy. It changes with a group of people going down there and actually not being lazy, but it doesn't change. It doesn't change by, a verdict slip. As much as, jury nullification that's not what you should do either. So, but it's just, this is fucked up to me. But at the end of the day, I put the blame all on Bill Thompson. I put the blame on the judges, Bill Thompson, because I guarantee you Ann Taylor's going to come out and she's going to say, we had no chance at winning because you guys, look it's right in front of your faces and y'all keep continuing to lie. And so that's going to be why would I expect the rules to change once we're in trial? So my job is to save his life, right? This is the best deal because you don't stand a chance. Well, no, Ann, you still have to go through the motions, Ann, because that's his best chance at an appeal, right? You get it? Or, people keep saying to me, Lana, but you're going to believe what Bryan Kohberger is saying to you? Like, just because he wrote that piece of paper? No, I believe based off of everything that was taking place for 3.5 years. And then all of a sudden, boom, out of the blue, a plea deal. And he's going to say he did it. What? And his defense attorneys the whole time were saying that they knew that he didn't either. This wasn't some 6-month, 3-month case, and then it was a plea deal. This wasn't a month case. And you're going to hear it from Turvey. He says this is an extraordinary case. I have so much praise for Turvey and the work that he's done over the course of time. Okay, if you're a criminal justice person, if you've studied it, okay, and I can say that I have. I don't believe that this man is speaking out because he wants the camera on him. The media sought him out back in January of 2025 when somehow his report, it wasn't, maybe we should even go back to that. Okay. Let's go back to January of 2025 because I'm really looking hard at that time period because of an exhibit that Ann Taylor filed for emotional limine in what was going on in November and December of 2025 into January of 2025. And it was all of Bryan's electronics. Okay. There was we'll get into it after he speaks, but guys, I think I can figure out some things based on these filings. I think I've put together some really, really key dots. But everything that was going on in November and December of 2024 leading into then January of 2025 were really, really significant. And when I found out that Brent Turvey was involved, that's when he started getting involved, was that October time of 2024, which was a year after Cyree got involved in October of 2023. So you have Cyree 2023, you have Brent Turvey October of 2024, and then November and December of 2024 are very, very important months when you want to talk about the state all of a sudden decided to take Bryan Kohberger's computer, his phone, and other electronics that were, they decided to make working copies to give these to experts, quote unquote experts. But it was at the state's request. And I want to go back and see if it was the state's request or if it was the, because they wanted another peek at Bryan Kohberger's, what it seemed like I thought was another peek. I don't think they ever took a peek. I think that was the first time that they were willing to say, okay, hey, let's start looking at his Acer laptop and stuff like that. And that would be all about the Cellbrite experts. But they were told, or they told us that they never received a working copy and they could never take one home or anything like that. These filings that I saw, these motion liminees, it's saying otherwise because they made copies for them. And it was for them to just do what, like all of these people could take the copies home. Like Cyree has his copy. Brent Turvey has his copy, right? And the Cellbrite people wanted to come out and say, hey, we had to work in some weird ass room in Philly and we could never have anything. Not even our phones could go into that room. And we took no notes. I'm like, something's up with that. That doesn't make any sense to me. How does anybody work like that? And what Turvey's about to say here is going to blow your guys' minds. So we're here for it, though.
I can't be involved in, so you need to go do that. There are things that have to happen that I can't be a part of. And that's what happened. So I got told by the family directly that they had not received that stuff.
I mean, that's
the next thing
that's troubling. That's troubling.
Very troubling. It gets worse. It's way worse than you can possibly imagine. Way worse than I even worried about. I always game out the worst case scenarios and then I sort of prepare for them, hope for the best, plan for the worst kind of deal. And it's way worse. The family has not spoken yet because they're frightened out of their minds about what's going to happen the next time they speak. The vultures will descend, the legal consequences. They've been told to be quiet for this whole time, and they've also done the same thing. No,
they've been told to be quiet this whole time. I told you that's what Ann Taylor would tell them to do. Hey, you need to trust us. You don't understand the media is going to twist everything that you have to say. So I see that advice, okay, which I believe is sound advice. No doubt about it. I'm telling you, it's sound advice. Do not talk to the media because they are not interested and care about you at the fuck all. Do not trust anybody. You don't understand. You are just a story. You are just a paycheck. You are just the next fucking scoop. Period. They do not care about you. I would say don't trust me. Don't trust anybody. If your kid is ever murdered and it becomes a high profile case, stay the fuck away from anybody media-wise. And they will come at you in the form of saying that they are not media. And they will come at you in the form of just like, oh, I had to just reach out to you and you may never get this, but I'm just praying for you and blah, 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 all this fucking crazy shit, okay? And they try to inch their way in and they'll wait their time, they'll buy their time. And then here, this person's just like, oh, well, they've been around for so long. What do you mean they are like I would say a troll? That's what these people do, but they will wait and they will act like they're your friends and they will try to get into your inner circle. And it's absolutely sick. And I think that this should be a crime. I think that they need to somehow make this a crime. It is disgusting. It shouldn't be happening to the victims' families of like, if your child is murdered and, you know, your kid was one that was murdered, or if your child was the one that committed the crime or is alleged to have committed the crime. We need to protect these families. We need to protect these families. I think it should be a crime. I think that it's like elderly abuse in a way, okay? But you going and trying to take advantage of somebody that's at their worst and mentally just wrecked, and I mean, how damn dare you? I think those people should be fucking hung out to dry and like, that should be a crime. It should be a crime. And so here he's saying the Kohberger family, they can't talk to anybody. The media has portrayed them as what? The media has portrayed their son as what? You either birthed a killer, okay? You raised a killer, you helped him kill, whatever they want to say, then you're a sibling of his, or just this goes for anybody. I was a big advocate of Jamie Watts, well, and her name was changed because she got married. But I was like, dude, what is wrong with you people? Like, Chris Watts' family has nothing to do with this. Leave them alone. His sister didn't have anything to do with this. She wasn't there. She didn't. What's wrong with you people? You know what I mean? Like, stop. But being an advocate in that way literally put a big old target on my back. I don't give a fuck as long as you don't lie about me. The moment you lie about me, I have a problem. But the media is just awful. They don't give a fuck. You are a scoop to them.
Bryan Kohberger did not allocute because he couldn't, because he didn't know what happened. His family has not spoken out other than the sister giving one interview. And even that, after that, she's now a little gun shy, but they're trying to talk, but not. But
he just said why he couldn't allocute. Because he doesn't have any information. That's what we've been saying here. You can't allocute if you don't know anything. You cannot allocute. And that's why Bill Thompson was like, we can't ask him to allocute, like even to get up there, like, you know what I'm saying? Like he doesn't know, what happened. He can't say something that only the killer would know. How about that? Whatever y'all held back. Yeah.
they really don't have the facility to do that. They don't trust anybody and they shouldn't. But Kohberger himself in his filing makes this very real and says, I didn't know any of this stuff. I wasn't being told anything. I wasn't being given good advice. And I was told the opposite of some of the things that are occurring right now. And he is, as any good client does, has held his water this entire time because the person who speaks for him is Ann Taylor. And in lockup, he couldn't, he had no ability. Well, in lockup, he was even more limited by what he could say and who he could say it to. Now, I'll give you one other piece of information that I learned from the Kohberger family. She hasn't spoken to him since the plea. So she's in court representing him without even talking to him.
Okay. That is in direct contradiction. That is in direct contradiction to what is being put out and that is directly in contradiction to what has been put out by media personnel that has been really vocal and a talking head and a bobblehead for the Gonsalves family. You guys, if you could see my office right now, how destroyed it is. I print off everything. I put things in order based on chronological. That's how my brain works. And my office right now is absolutely torn upside down, looking for a couple key things because guess what? People have went back and taken stuff down off the internet. Taken stuff down off the internet. I employ us all right now. If you are looking for something to do, get in the, what is it called? The Wayback Machine, whatever the fuck it's called with the internet. Go back and try to find it's all News Nation. Go News Nation reporting and go back, okay, and see what's available in those first 3 weeks. Go heavy with November 29th to December 7th, right before they put the floodgates out for the White Elantra. Everything up and until the White Elantra is so imperative with the media in this for this. Everything that you can get. Download it, save it, get it. Because stuff is coming off the internet like you would not believe. And I can prove it. And thank God, I mean, my channel itself is like just thank God. It's an encyclopedia. It's a chronological order encyclopedia because I always went and did, whether I made a video, whether I did a live, I was showing the stuff that I believe that is off the internet right now. And that's proof that it did exist, right?
Wow. Can you imagine?
So,
that? Because the person who speaks for him is Ann Taylor. And in lockup, he couldn't, he had no ability. Well, in lockup, he was even more limited by what he could say and who he could say it to. Now, I'll give you one other piece of information that I learned from the Kohberger family. She hasn't spoken to him since the plea. So she's in court representing him without even talking to him.
Wow.
Can you imagine?
So
that
let me,
scenario?
no,
So the
no,
question,
no,
the
I
questions you're
can't.
asking are really for Ann Kohberger. Why didn't you?
He calls her Ann Kohberger. I don't know if he was being funny. Okay. Dude says Ann Kohberger. After what Cyree said about Ann having an inappropriate relationship, basically alluding to the fact that Ann Taylor is like, she's got some weird cuckoo going on over there. Okay. He calls her Ann Kohberger, dead, laughed. Like, I was like, that is either a Freudian slip or a true mess up. Okay. But Ann Kohberger, man, come on. Now, this had my brain thinking. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, dude, who the hell is feeding the family all of this fucking bullshit? Or is the family just making stuff up? Those are your options. Okay. It's one thing if you believe you're being trolled and then you want to mess with trolls. And so like you do things to say like, yeah, I get these people all like, riled up. I'll go ahead and I'll say something. I just think there's a time and a place for everything that's like that. But the facts and the circumstances surrounding your daughter's or son's murder, that's not gonna, that doesn't fit for me. But we were definitely being told by multiple people that that like Ann and Bryan were just two peas in a pod, right? We got people that are leaking stuff from the county at the jail. And then remember, like somebody leaked the video of Bryan Kohberger in his jail cell. Wild shit. Ann Taylor wasn't there, hasn't been there to see him. Curious about the conversations.
You share this exculpatory material, then why aren't you talking to your client?
Wow.
Can you imagine?
So
that
let me,
scenario? So the
no, I
questions
can't.
you're asking are really for Ann Kohberger. Why didn't you share this exculpatory material, then why aren't you talking to your client?
Yeah, I mean, that just makes no sense to me. And when I look at this, and I want to be really clear, so people that are listening or watching
in my little brain, it makes sense to me,
Yeah.
but we can speculate
Well,
as to why.
Sure. Well, and when I look at this, and I want people who are listening or watching to understand, there is a very big difference between the atrocities and the horrific things that happened to these 4 young college students. Well, and when I'm listening or watching
in my little brain, it makes sense to me,
Yeah.
but we can speculate
Well,
as to why.
Sure. Well, and when I look at this, and I want people who are listening
See that editing job right there?
or watching to understand, there is a very big difference between the atrocities and the horrific things that happened to these 4 young college students and the court process. And so, everybody.
Thank you. Fucking can't say it. We say it here all the fucking time. If you don't know how to separate that, okay, we are talking about the process. We at this channel are all for a fair process, for a just process, for a transparent process. And we believe, no matter who's ever going to sit in that defendant's chair, that you are innocent until proven guilty. Now, if you record yourself committing the crimes and then you put them online, one of my rules here, I do have the right to say and play you committing the crimes, you recording yourself and then showing it to say, yeah, you're guilty, dude. You're going to prison because you recorded yourself committing crimes. However, if there is no record of that, okay, you absolutely, all right, everybody out there, and I don't want to hear this as just a disclaimer anymore. Well, everyone's innocent until proven guilty, but blah, blah. Fuck your butt, bitch. Okay? Hell, stop. Stop shifting the burden. Stop. The media is designed to keep everybody in check. The government, that is. That's who everybody is. So right here, thank you so much, Donna, for saying, hey, there's a difference here. Because if everybody is not on the same page that what was done in that house, whoever did that should never see the light of day, right? And if there ever is a reason to have the death penalty, this will be a case for it. There's no doubt about it. And anybody and everybody involved in that should go down. There's no plea deals. There's no deals. There's no nothing. That's that situation. And everybody that was a friend, a parent, a sibling, they're a victim. They need to be treated with, compassion, dignity, everything that's afforded to our victims. With that said, once you do arrest somebody or somebody's, plural people, there becomes a process. And that process doesn't change just because of whatever the situation is and why this process is even happening in the first place. The process must be the process. And if you want to be an advocate for a fair process, that does not make you an advocate for a fucking killer. That makes you an advocate for a fair process, for a transparent process. And if you don't believe in that, then you're the cuckoo. Because why do you think the Innocence Project exists? Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
Out there is talking about how awful this is for the families to have to relive this, and this is coming back, and it is. It's awful. It's awful that it ever happened in the first place. But I think every person of every family member would want to make sure that whoever was put behind bars for this is actually the person who did it. And so, I've always
say
thought
that's generally true, but I won't just speak out.
He wants to cut her off. Now, this is where I was just like, oh boy, this is going to get interesting because I know exactly where he's headed. Donna makes it a point to say that everybody's saying right now, this is so awful for the parents and the family, the victims, to have to go through this again. Well, I want to say something first. Stop. The prosecutor and his entire team is the reason this is happening. Number one. Number two, the criminal justice process is exactly what the process is. There's going to be appeals. That happens every day. Post-conviction. There's tentacles to our criminal justice process. If you aren't explaining that, okay, fairly and honestly to victims, keep the blame on the people that aren't doing that. Stop blaming the people that are asking for the right things to be done and blaming them because we're over here seeking the truth through transparency. We're over here seeking, I get it that you're never going to have every answer to every question you ever will have, to include motive. That is not an element of the crime. Okay. But when you can't even stand by your probable cause, when you're taking hours, days, months, years to unseal stuff that should have been never sealed in the first place, when you're hiding the entire case behind a fake and phony probable cause, 18 pages that you spread across the whole United States of America and then to other countries, yeah, you deserve to be blasted. And we have the media. The media is protecting that. The media is protecting that. They should be the ones blasting it. Not people that are using social media platforms to fucking blast it.
On this very issue, because it's one of the things that disgusts me the most.
That whoever was put behind bars for this is actually the person who did it. And so,
I've
always
say
thought
that's generally true, but I won't just speak out on this very issue because it's one of the things that disgusts me the most. I've never seen a family try to sell their daughter's story like this before, ever. Going to CrimeCon, trying to get different documentary deals. I'm disgusted by that. I wouldn't even think to do that as an expert, and I have access to everything. I'll talk to you and we'll have a professional conversation.
Okay. That's going to rile up people right there. That's going to rile people up. And the question, and what Donna was saying is that I don't think there's anybody's family, nobody would ever want somebody to be in jail or prison for something that they did not do. Well, I played that little clip for Bella, and she's like, I totally disagree with Brent Turvey because he must not know the patties in the Delphi case. And I about fell out of my chair. Okay. And then she said that that's a ridiculous comment to make regardless. And, blah, blah, blah. And, me and Bella go back and forth on this case all the time. And I'm just like, we're not even going to talk about this case anymore. Okay. But literally the first thing that she said then he doesn't know the patties and what they did over there with the Delphi case. Okay. Now, this all is stemming from basically Turvey is saying, Donna, you are saying that these parents the victims, they wouldn't want the wrong person. He's over here saying, well, I believe that they don't care or they believe that they have the right person and whoever they're listening to and whatever's being told to them, right? Is why they feel the way they do, right? Let's be honest. You better give the G's that type of credit. We're like, you guys, they're being told stuff, they're being given stuff as to here, this is why. And now just recently, a defense expert goes over there and is saying, hey, forget about my report. Let me show you what I didn't put in my report. Okay. So with that said, the G's and the other families, they have their opinions because of what was told to them. Okay. Right now, I'm still giving them that. And I would encourage everybody else to do as well. Why? Because we know what the fuck they have put out and told. And we know that it's lies, right? And so therefore you can put 1 + 1 = 2. Therefore, they told that to the families, right? And therefore the families then would have disinformation. And from their disinformation, this is their person, right? And the disinformation is from the 18 and 19 pages for probable cause, right? Nobody shut off no phone at 2:47. The biggest lie out there. And why? Because they try to make a car and a phone moving in sequence going to Moscow that never fucking happened. Right? There's never any probable cause. You're not getting to this person. You're not getting this person's DNA. You're never going to match the sheath DNA to this person via an arrest using then getting his DNA that way, because why didn't you just go and get it by lifting it? Who cares if he had to wait till he gets back to freaking Washington? Do it by not violating by lying in a complete PCA to then having the government then, okay, now we can go ahead and get your DNA off of the lies that we just told, right? Versus doing it the way that you're supposed to do it with IGG, which is when you get a tip or you get a lead, then you're supposed to go find that person and then pick up their DNA and then test it, right? Yeah. So I think that that's going to sting a little bit. And I do believe, though, that this has been stuff where the family has come out and spoke against, obviously, Chris Whitcomb, obviously, Brent Turvey. Shit has spoke out about everything that Ann Taylor, like the whole team. But then recently they say, hey, Ann Taylor did everything for him. And now I see why it was going to be a battle of like, the family is basically going to have to take Ann Taylor's side. And if you never understood why, now it should be clear. Because what Bryan and experts are going to say compared to what Ann Taylor is about to say. So now the families are going to be in a really weird position where they're supporting a defense attorney. You get what I'm saying? It's a really big fuck. It's a mind fuck. But I believe that things have been said in the public. And I just think it was that's his opinion. And I think he's just being blunt because she said what she said. And he doesn't feel that way. He's like, well, no, why are you pushing a narrative? And why are you still believing people that have been lying to you? And I'm just like, well, how do they know that they're being lied to? They've been pushing for a trial. They've been pushing for a trial and pushing for a trial. You get what I'm saying? Like, they weren't the ones that said, take a plea deal. Lay it all out there. So I just know that if I was in Brent Turvey's situation there, I probably wouldn't have said that, because I wouldn't have made it about that. But I think this is the build up and the lead up to, hey, what has gone on in this case is what is unimaginable. What we even thought that we knew, meaning him, and like how bad we thought it's nothing compared to what it truly is. And that to me is scary. That to me is scary, because that's insinuating that Ann Taylor was doing fluff all along. And see,
But not for money.
There's no way that I'm going to sit here and say that Ann Taylor did all these things. I think that Ann Taylor deserves her day to speak on this. Otherwise, if I didn't say that, I'd be a hypocrite, right? But a lot of questions. But if any of this is true, fuck yeah, he deserves a trial, and fuck yeah, this is nuts. Lana, come on, you were just stressing the G's to ask about Kaylee's phone. What do you mean? Of course I am. I told them I absolutely. And they're going to be, and they're doing it. And they're doing it. They're taking a side by side of both reports. And they already think they already sent it in. They sent it to Moscow and saying, what the fuck? What the hell is this Walla Walla report next to Mowry's, report 59? You care to explain this? You care to explain what you were doing with our daughter's phone and the extraction for 4 days, and you lie about it in a report? So I already know that that's underway.
Sure.
And certainly anybody who's out there trying to sell a story for money, that's grotesque.
And, and I'm not going to judge what people do when they're put in the most horrific situations. I mean, obviously we can have personal opinions on it, but in terms of, just being, and again, you have to remember that these are people that are talking to one side, right? They're talking to the prosecutors. They're looking at what the prosecutors are showing them. They're believing, what they hear. But
there it is. Exactly what I've been saying. Exactly what I've been saying for years. That the G's are believing the people that they're supposed to believe. They're not going to why would you ever think that a prosecutor or a police officer or a detective or an FBI person is lying to you? Why? Because somebody puts it on YouTube? No. I just know that I have a very solid relationship with, and people respect my work. People know that I don't come out here and, hey, Lana goes and gets the documents. Hey, Lana shows the documents. Lana digs my work ethic. They know it, and they value it. They appreciate it. And if I find something it's worthy of, hey, you might want to take a look at this. And that's worthy and to take a look at. But you're never going to think that the people that are supposed to be telling you the truth are lying to you. And so I can't agree more with how Donna said that, because that's how I look at it. So I completely agree with what she's saying here.
Prosecutors sit down with family members prior to pleas and talking about strength of evidence. And, they do that in terms of, actual facts or physical exhibits or things like that. That might be a little bit different. But I do think that from a practical standpoint, even people who it's very difficult to relive this, I would think that even at some point, your logical brain would take over and you would say, okay, if this really isn't the guy, then we want to make sure that we find the guy. But now let me ask you this question, because here's the practical side of this. This is a very difficult thing to overcome for Bryan Kohberger, right? Taking back a plea, putting yourself in a position to actually have a trial and to be able to plead not guilty. This is a legal burden that is very high. And so I'm wondering where you think this goes next for him. Do you think legally he has enough to go into the court and say, you know what, my lawyer was ineffective and didn't do a good job? And I'm, the legal standard's high. And I'm just wondering, because, the courts give a lot of deference to lawyers saying that was strategic. They made a decision. They decided not to do this. Now, it's a little different when you're talking about a plea versus a trial that went bad.
You're absolutely correct. It's a very high and very difficult legal burden for anyone to overcome. And this is not a regular case. It's a case with exceptional circumstances. The first issue is he didn't allocute. That's the first thing that always sticks out to me. It really bothered me that he didn't allocute, and that
Same.
caused a lot of problems.
Same.
because that's supposed to happen. Well, let's take a step back and ask ourselves what we don't know. Who was the NBC Dateline leak?
What I say to Whitcomb? What was one of my questions? When he fucking said this, I was like, thank God. I was like, thank you. What I said to Whitcomb, I said, let's talk about the Dateline leak. Last time you were on my channel, they're over here, Brent, Turvey, all this about the Dateline leak. We haven't heard shit about the leak, right? You guys, this is not difficult. This is not difficult. It should be so easy to pinpoint who gave Dateline this material. You want to know why? Because it was such coveted material, right? And Dateline must be like, either they decided to give up the source, right? Or they decided, say, I'm not going to give up the source, but then I'm over here so confused because how come in Boston, all that shit had to go like, and I get it. There's different laws in different states. I understand that. But I'm saying that what somebody did in this case is criminal because you violated a court order. So then you can hold them in contempt and you can do what you do, right? So yeah, like if you're going to do an investigation into it, trust me, think about any misdemeanor out there that you've ever been charged with. In what lengths that the stupid city people went through to oh yeah, come on, what the fuck happened here? How does the defendant's phone get out on the internet? Get out to Dateline? Get out in a huge ass nationwide publication on a Dateline 2020 episode or whatever the fuck it was on NBC. They knew what they were doing too. Shame on NBC. Shame on Dateline.
Wasn't me.
Correct.
It wasn't. The Ada County Sheriff's Department's investigating Ann Taylor's office. That would have been, and the special master who would do the investigation knew before the plea who it was, and they put that on file. And
they knew before the plea on who it was, and they put that file where? Did you guys just hear that? That they knew who the leak was before the plea. Wait, what? I'll replay that again. Now, does Turvey know what he's talking about here? Is he just talking out of his ass?
It's supposed to happen. Well, let's take a step back and ask ourselves what we don't know. Who was the NBC Dateline leak? Wasn't me.
Correct.
It wasn't. The Ada County Sheriff's Department's investigating Ann Taylor's office. That would have been, and the special master who would do the investigation knew before the plea who it was, and they put that on file and they sealed it. Bryan Kohberger doesn't know who that leak was. He didn't.
So I have a question here. The last time that he did an interview, again, we have to go, because I'm a timeline person. This doesn't make any sense to me. Why would then they be talking to, so this is why I always clarify the timeline of when somebody's telling me about a story. So when did Brent Turvey get called up by law enforcement to investigate this leak? And he tried to reach out to Ann Taylor, who didn't get back to him for, remember that? Like she got back to me like a month or 2 or 3 later or whatever and said, oh yeah, you can go ahead and talk to them. And he's like, you want me to talk to them? Remember he's explaining this? And when I was listening to the interview, I took that as that happened after the plea deal happened, not before. And so can I just behoove everybody, like, it's just, please, if you're going to do an interview with these people, please get the details of just one simple thing. When did that happen? You need to ask people when that occurred. Are we talking last week? Are we talking 3 months ago? Please, when somebody wants to tell you something about an incident, you have to ask them when it was, because with what he's saying right now, it should be blowing all of your minds if you're paying attention to the details. You should be saying, wait a second, wait, what? Because it doesn't make sense. Then that means that Brent Turvey why would he be talked to after the fact if they already know who did the leak before the plea deal? So please, if you interview people, ask when it occurred. Get it all. You have to set the stage in chronological order, because that's how you can catch people lying.
To help him, it hurt him badly.
Correct.
It wasn't. The Ada County Sheriff's Department investigating Ann Taylor's office. That would have been, and the special master who would do the investigation knew before the plea who it was, and they put that on file and they sealed it. Bryan Kohberger doesn't know who that leak was. It didn't help him. It hurt him badly. So he should know. If Ann Taylor knows, and she definitely knows, she would have to know because she's part of that sealed material. She would have to have reviewed it. She certainly.
Right there, I would be asking a question. Wait, what do you mean that she would have to know about that sealed material? How would Ann Taylor know who the leak is? You understand the question there? Just because it's why would she know? And I think he has something confused here, because Ann Taylor was adamant that she did not know who she was trying to get to the bottom of who the leak was, because it mattered and it was very, very important for her going into trial to be able to cross-examine the person that did it and ask them why the fuck they did it. That was going to be very, very important for cross-examination. And she talks about that. And that's why when she was asking, this was in May or June, whatever that hearing was, when she was like saying that she needed more time and she was asking for a continuation. And it was right after the Dateline episode had aired. So it may have been either at the end of May or beginning of June. And I can tell you what, she doesn't know who the leak was. So you're saying that Ann Taylor found out between the time of her saying that and asking for sanctions and saying either A, we push the trial back, or you take the death penalty off the table. That's what she wanted to have happen. Either you push the trial back due to this whole Dateline and this book with, what's his name, or take the death penalty off the table. So I'm not questioning Brent Turvey here in terms of like that you're a liar. I'm saying we need really, really clarification here, because I know this case inside and out, and I'm confused at what he's insinuating here. When did Ann Taylor know? Because he's insinuating that it's happened before the plea, or are you talking about before the sentencing? It's two different things as well. When the plea deal was made, there's a date on that. And in the sentencing, there's a date on that. And they were roughly like about 3 weeks apart, beginning of July and then July 23rd.
They didn't pass that along to Kohberger. So that's a problem. That's the first little hurdle there that's going to contextualize why he wasn't looped in and why he was coerced into taking this deal and why he was told to lie, why he was told to perjure himself. And again, this is something that people do all the time under the stress and duress of a defense attorney telling him, I'm not taking this to trial. For what is it, like a third, 29-30% of all of the people who are exonerated by the Innocence Project basically confessed and took a plea deal at the urgence of their defense attorney because they were frightened they were going to lose a trial. That's a third. That's not a joke. That's something we have to think about how our legal system works. The next thing is that if this, I really appreciate that Judge Hippler appeared on paper, at least, to be taking this seriously by accepting the filing and then appointing him a new attorney. I don't know. It concerns me that it's a small town attorney that's got a 1-star rating. It concerns me a bit who the attorney is, but.
Turvey, we're fucking dancing over here. 1-star attorney, 1 star. You guys watched it here. This is Tina with What the Fuck Transition Services. What the fuck is up with that 1 star? He's got a ton of them. The 1 star is what I joke about. You guys, what never made sense to me and Bella when we were doing a ton of research, we were calling offices, okay? It doesn't make sense that he is taking on this case with having he's not a death penalty certified attorney. So we knew that. He's not death penalty certified. Why is he even in the mix? And why is somebody from Moscow taking this on and not somebody out of Ada County? Also, I'm going to be frank with you guys. I told you guys who I thought should be taking this case, and it should be Joe Bolton. The person that the public defender's office, because that's who was representing Bryan Kohberger, they had to bow out because it's a conflict of interest, because Bryan just basically accused the public defender's office, because that's where Ann Taylor was, right? Accused the public defender's office, like that's his issue, his issues with the public defender's office. And I'm like, what better of a situation here that, yeah, you're going to have to go outside of it. So it'd be private practice. And I'm just scratching my head at how in the world are you going to assign him somebody in Moscow who's from Moscow, who's part of that town, right? When you moved the fucking case for the purpose because of the town being so, we're not going to be able to seat a jury here, blah, blah, blah. Let's just go get him a local fucking attorney who's been there for his entire life. Like, we're talking, went to Moscow high school. Okay. We're not talking about somebody that just ended up there because he went to law school in Moscow. Okay. No. He grew up there. He is a townie. So we give him a townie, we give him somebody so far away from his client, right? And how are you going to like work with him, talk with him? I mean, just to travel there. I mean, are we for real? The taxpayers, like, what's going on here? Like, no, you're going to give him somebody a hell of a lot closer, right? So it just doesn't make any sense. It truly doesn't. But we looked it up, and he has 7 cases that he was appointed for just this past year in post-conviction relief settings for the circumstances of post-conviction relief. What type of revolving, like, we were thinking, hey, it's your turn, like your call, the next person's called, you just keep going on like this. Okay. How could this dude, like, what are y'all doing in Idaho? Like, everyone's just filing for post-conviction, and nobody can afford it. So we just have this revolving, but this guy doesn't even work for the public defender's office, right? How does he already have 7 cases? It doesn't make sense. The math ain't mathing for me. And there is no way in fucking hell I am rolling with that man. Okay. I told you I would not hire him to get me out of a parking ticket. All right. And mark my words here. Bryan Kohberger needs to go and get Jill Bolton. If the fucking if the town's going to pay for it, she has no issues taking on the police. None. She will bury the police. She knows how corrupt they are. It's just when you run out of money, Jill Bolton runs when you run out of money. But looks like that's not going to be a problem if the state's paying for it.
Maybe he's better than we know, and maybe he's got death experience that we don't know about. So that's the next part. It's not just about
he's being
the legal
facetious.
hurdles, it's about the competence and quality of your representation, right? But the other thing is that it's the next step that has to happen in the process. You've done this before, I'm certain. And I don't know whether you ever worked with Innocence Networks before, but I have through my entire career. In fact, I started working with the Innocence Project. My first big case, high profile case, was the West Memphis case. And I worked directly with the Innocence Project out of Caruso Law in that case. And the process and the metrics and the intake ability of a Innocence Project is dependent upon all the other appeals being denied or completed, those processes completed. So in terms of it being a stepping stone towards other legal avenues, you have to knock them down one at a time, right? One thing at a time. You can't just skip to the end, right? So right. I see it as a big legal hurdle. I fear that Ann Taylor is going to be in a lot more trouble than she thinks, because the communications that she had with everyone are documented.
This is interesting. Do you guys know, remember I told you this, that I had a fear, and the only fear I had was the fact that I was reached out to by the public defender's office for my source that had everything to do with knowing about everything about the Snapchats, Dave. I have all of that documented. I have the dates, everything. I was just going through this the other day. To think that that purposely got buried and that Ann Taylor never fucking did anything with it except for the fact to say, potentially to tip off the prosecution / police. Are you kidding me? Like, that's what was started going through my mind. Like, come on, there is no fucking way that this is what happened with this. Like, there is no fucking way that this was like a double cross almost. Because I can tell you who did not reach out to me, right? If you are seeking the truth, and I know for a fact that the Moscow people watch that are on the prosecution side, that if you're seeking the truth, then you heard that interview was heard by hundreds of thousands of people and a ton in that area. Like almost everybody in that area heard it. Why didn't the prosecution reach out to me to ask, hey, X, Y, and Z? To say, we're still obviously investigating this case. We got a tip that you may have, they knew about this earlier. We're trying to get everybody involved. If there's more people, do you want to, yada, yada, yada. That never happened. The prosecution and nobody from the police department ever reached out. But the defense was all over it. And they got in touch with me very, very quickly after I had that interview. And that was in 2023. And that was when things weren't settling right with the students over on that campus. When they were like, okay, yeah, like this isn't jiving. Because we weren't all sleuths and we did not know that we don't put timelines together. We didn't know that, wow, wait, we knew way before the police knew. Wait a second, hold on. That's what it was all about. And it was just like that something wasn't right. And you know what I see now as I listen to these interviews, the interviews of the kids, everybody had doubts around the two surviving roommates. Everybody kept saying in these interviews that we still uncover today, they keep on saying that they're like, yeah, and it's like they do it softly, but they are definitely questioning how there's two surviving roommates and wait, they were up when it was happening. They're making it known that, yeah, this is really bizarre. Okay. So the more and more that I hear that on the interviews that are being released, those students in that area all questioned it. All questioning the surviving roommates and their story. And then when they continue to start talking and start realizing that, wait, the cops were called when? Oh, we knew about this way before. The fact that Eric Gower texts Kaylee's phone within seconds of the vandal alert makes me want to throw up. The vandal alert, 1:04 and 1 second that it hit people's phones. Yeah, go take a look at Kaylee's. It just came out. Go over and see what time he texted Kaylee. And when I say within seconds, that means anywhere between 1 second and 59 seconds before you get to a minute. That means that he would have to have known that the vandal alert came in, read it, right? And then thought the first person I'm going to go ahead and text is going to be Kaylee. You know how many rides he gave? You know how many people live on King?
They're all documented. So all that stuff is going to come out. She no longer holds a privilege. Kohberger does. And if he gets his day in court, a hearing, which I worry that he won't, then all that stuff could come in. All those communications with family members and Kohberger himself, which he would want to have come out about the nature and extent of the coercion to him and his family by the attorney team. All right. We're not living in the old days where it's somebody's word. We don't take people at their word anymore because we can't. We have digital evidence we can use, text messages, video calls, video chats. The very evidence that we collected, we should have all collected in this case and disclosed initially, which took years to disclose, is the very evidence that would be presented in this court, in this type of hearing. So I'm not as pessimistic as you are, but I am realistic, which is I know what the hurdles are. And as you said, Mr. Kohberger is not an idiot either. So for him to put this all on the table tells me that he's ready to go. And
do you know what he is basically insinuating? I'm gonna fucking just say it. We can't take people at their word anymore. Amen to that. Keep fucking receipts. Love it. What the hell is Ann Taylor doing? All of this is documented. Heather says, you can see when Ann Taylor turned by watching the hearings and Ann Taylor's terrible arguments. You can see when she gave up and wanted that plea deal. She didn't want to risk her career going after Idaho. I think Ann Taylor deserves her day to talk. And I said, wouldn't it be something to hear that Ann Taylor was threatened? Bryan Kohberger is coerced by his attorney because the attorney, Ann Taylor, tell the truth. Take down this fucking system. This is nuts. And no, I don't think I think none of this is bullshit. And so people out there that are going to try to say that this is bullshit, you're a fool. You're an absolute fucking fool. Okay, there's no place for this in our criminal justice system. None. The moment that there was this last minute shotgun plea and it had to be accepted within like 24 to 48 hours, right? And how were you able to get Bryan Kohberger to say yes in that short amount of time? And that you went to his family to make that happen? That's fucking appalling. That's disgusting. That's nuts. And Hitler better fucking do the right thing. Do the right thing. Is Hitler going to say that Dr. Turvey is a conspiracy theorist too? He labeled fucking Cy-Ray one. I mean, it's embarrassing. Grant him his trial, start this fucker in 3 months, and go. But how can you? Can you truly ask in that you could say that a defense attorney can be ready to go in 3 months? No. What's going to come off the table, I think, is the death penalty. And they're going to say, you need to be ready to go in 6 months. You need to be ready to go after the first of the year. And guess what, Ann Taylor? You're going to have to get them up to speed. Are you kidding me? That's what normally happens is these attorneys are supposed to talk. That's part of your oath. What? I mean, what's realistic here? When would this even go to trial?
I don't think that his legal team is prepared for what he's going to present.
Well, and I think to your point about if we just start back with the original Dateline leak, I mean, if that comes back, that came from his own lawyers, I mean, right there, you put him in a position where he was never defended properly.
Or one of his experts. And I was like, oh my God, no, he is not going to go here. And he's going to go here. And he's going to go to Cy-Ray. Oh my God. Wait for this. Or one of his experts. Or one of his experts.
Direction of the attorney, right?
You put him in a position where he was never
defended
properly.
At the direction of the attorney, right?
Or one of his experts at the direction of his attorney. Did you just hear that? There's more.
And not just the attorney team, but also you got 3 attorneys and their assistants, and then you've also got, kind of a rogue defense expert right now going out there saying contrary things, And so we don't know.
You have a rogue expert out there. I knew that they were going to call him rogue. He is rogue. He did go rogue. This is unheard of. This is unheard of, and this is bad. This is bad. Unbelievable. Rogue.
All we know
Yeah.
is
He was never
we're one of his
defended
experts
properly.
at the direction of the attorney, right? And then not just the attorney team, but also you got 3 attorneys and their assistants, and then you've also got, kind of a rogue defense expert right now going out there saying contrary things, And so we don't know. All we know
Yeah.
is police think it came from the defense, and I know it wasn't.
If that's the case, I mean, that is just
Police think it came from the defense.
The police think it came from the defense. And I'm going to tell you this right now. If this is true, I said it to begin with. It is worse. It would be way worse. And for Bryan Cole, I mean, better for him in terms of like, yeah, he deserves a freaking new everything. Mistrial, let's all restart. If it came from his own team tried to tank his freaking case. Now we were wondering why Ann Taylor hasn't spoke out against Cy Ray. Okay. Is it because Cy Ray did Ann Taylor a solid? And they're in cahoots to say, I'm with you, man. I don't want to fucking get off a fucking killer. Okay. Well, what are we going to do? Leak his fucking phone? What? Think about it. Okay. That is what's basically being implied here. As a possibility, is that Ann Taylor and Cy Ray having a glass of wine and like, what are we gonna do? Like, you're the one that can get me a new trial, or you can get this actually whole fucking thing dismissed, right? But then we have a killer out here, right? Right? Yeah. So let's just come on. I mean, why did Cy Ray ever write the report to begin with? I mean, what is going on here? Of course, the police are saying it's the defense. You guys, I still believe that the prosecution is the leak. Because before there was ever a defense in place, the prosecution was going out on a horror media tour. Bill Thompson sitting and speaking with anybody and everybody at the end of November. And I'll never forget that. And I was like, you son of a bitch. You son of a bitch. And this is coming from a guy that doesn't do that, supposedly. So you're going to have to show me some serious fucking proof to tell me that it's not Ed Jacobson as the leak. Because Ed Jacobson has all the relationships out there. And especially with Shane Bishop, because they were working on the Brian Drake murder out there in Bonners Ferry.
I know it wasn't.
If that's the case, I mean, that is just, crazy. Now, let's talk about the evidence that they do believe, right, that they had against Kohberger from this whole time. And I know we talked about it last time you were on. I know it's part of Christopher Whitcomb's Broken Plea book. But talk to me again about, they basically found Bryan Kohberger based on the DNA that they got from the IgG DNA testing on the knife sheath. And I know that part of the big contention here is that knife sheath, the chain of custody wasn't proper, where it was found versus where it was in photos, all of those things. So talk to us again about really, because that really was the only piece of evidence they had other than the description of a vehicle, right? They didn't.
Gotta give a shout out here to Kay Schmidt, woo woo, and buying memberships, as well as Karen, look out, coming through. Karen, Black Cat and Jam, I know you're there, Karen. And this is everything you've been waiting for and more, girl.
Really have anything else. So that's what led them to Bryan Kohberger. So talk to me again about that and then what the issues were with that chain of custody, because I think it's important for people to remember that while they're listening today.
All right. So 2 things. One is that we don't know. As I'm sitting here today, I cannot confirm to you by any forensic metric or by any judicial testimony or any unsworn testimony, anything like that. I cannot attest to you that I know for sure how Bryan Kohberger became a suspect. What I do know is at every opportunity, there was deflection, there was dissembling, and there was withholding by law enforcement about how that exactly happened. We don't know. As I'm sitting here today, I cannot confirm to you by any forensic metric or by any judicial testimony or any unsworn testimony, anything like that. I cannot attest to you that I know for sure how Bryan Kohberger became a suspect. What I do know is at every opportunity, there was deflection, there was dissembling, and there was withholding by law enforcement about how that exactly happened. At one point, you have a probable cause statement saying it was from an informant. And then at one point, it's the IgG. And then you have at every opportunity, there was deflection, there was dissembling, and there was withholding by law enforcement about how that exactly happened. At one point, you have a probable cause statement saying it was from an informant, and then at one point it's the IGG, and then you have the
Wait a second. What probable cause is there ever talking about an informant?
At one point, you have a probable cause statement saying it was from an informant, and then at one point it's the IGG, and then you have the experts in DNA being fired on both sides. I mean, it's just like nobody was getting the answers that they wanted, and it's in DNA being, it's the IGG, and then you have the experts in DNA being fired on both sides. I mean, it's just like nobody was getting the answers that they wanted, and people were getting terminated. It's one of the weirdest cases. The experts in DNA being fired on both sides. I mean, it's just.
He's talking about Othram being fired. When he's saying, that's what he's basically, when he's saying fired, he's saying Othram was fired, basically. And DNA people on both sides. Then, no, an informant that would have been in the PCA, there is, that doesn't come out like that.
Like nobody was getting the answers that they wanted, and people were getting terminated. It's one of the weirdest cases ever. This was an issue that should have been resolved with testimony under oath and documentation provided by the state. They have yet to.
Yeah, this should have all come out in suppression hearings. Remember the long game? This should have all come out in a motion to dismiss. This should have all come out. I mean,
provide that clearly, in my opinion. So I cannot tell you that.
Yeah.
And the fact that I can't tell you that should tell you that they're still, faffing about it to try to create. They're searching for a narrative still, I think.
How did you get to Bryan Kohberger? Thank you so much, Brent Turvey. That has been the theme of my channel for going on 4 years come November. How did you get to Bryan Kohberger? It has been lies upon lies with that. That's it. How did you get to Bryan Kohberger? He gets it. And he's telling us today in 2026, he has no idea how the fuck Bryan Kohberger became a suspect.
Can't tell you that should tell you that they're still, faffing about it to try to create. They're searching for a narrative still, I think.
And in terms of what you were able to review, do you know if you were given access to all of the evidence, or were you given access to certain pieces of evidence? How do you know that what Ann Taylor allowed you to look at was actually everything she had?
I'm smiling because I really love this question from prosecutors or attorneys when I'm on the stand. So did you look at everything? And the answer to that, there's only one answer to that is, how can I possibly know the answer to that?
Yeah, or the answer is, I looked at everything I was provided. Everything that I was provided, I looked at. You know what I mean? And I think it's a great question, because the jury then has to, that's why it's important to understand, well, what were you provided? You know what I mean? For like the jury to understand. And then when you yourself is an expert, and you just think about it, even if you weren't an expert, think about when your fucking best friend wants to call you and tell you that they need you. I need to vent to you about what happened between me and Joe and blah, blah. And they start telling you about the story, their sob story, right? What do you say? Hopefully you're sorry. Like, what do you mean? What happened? Like, wait, back up, say from this. Is this how this happened? Well, when's the last time? And then they start telling you when you start asking these little questions, well, no, then this is this, and it says then they start giving you a little bit more and more and more and more and more, and you're just like, well, this is nothing what you first told me. Like, yeah, you're a yeah, you're a crazy bitch. Like, you, girl, I love you to death, but you are a stalker. Like, you need to back off your man for a minute, okay? Let them breathe, okay? But so think about it like that when a friend comes to you and, oh my God, and you just hear their side of the story, and it's just so like, you're like, yeah, what a fucking piece of shit that dude is. I can't believe he would ever do that. But then when you actually get all the information, you're like, what a fucking psycho is my friend. Like, so that's the perfect example of saying, well, yeah, I thought this until I received this, this, and this, and this, and this. Each time I was receiving the more information, it was like, this ain't nothing. What you just said, girl, like, what you talking about? You didn't tell me that the cops called you and he put a restraining order on your ass, and then you're like, you left all that because it doesn't matter. Like, why would he ever do that to me? You know, and you're just like, girl, you need Dr. Phil, Oprah. Like, what the fuck's wrong with you? Okay. Lana, oh my God, my boyfriend gets off work at 5 or 6 and he didn't call me until 8. Do you think he's cheating on me? No, I think he probably went and got beers after work. Did he go to the gym? He wasn't at the gym and he wasn't answering my calls, and I called him 15 times. You're a fucking psycho. I wouldn't answer your phone either. I wouldn't answer your calls either. Okay.
Well,
I couldn't
sure,
know if I've
sure.
seen everything.
But
I can tell you this. Ann Taylor gave experts like myself access to a OneDrive on Google Drive that was called Expert One or whatever. And anytime you wanted to access it, you had to log in, put in the password. That would send her an email, and she would send you a text message with the verification code. Okay, so pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like this. Okay, listen up. He's explaining something really important with what I like to hear. Exactly what I said, how it would go.
Gave experts like myself access to a OneDrive on Google Drive that was called Expert One or whatever. And anytime you wanted to access it, you had to log in, put in the password. That would send her an email, and she would send you a text message with the verification code. Okay, so pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
And I have a problem with any of that. What I do know is I thought I was given, I asked for certain things. I make a list of things that I asked for. It's a pro forma list I asked for in every case. And so I do that. And then we go to Idaho to do the evidence viewing, which I do in almost every case that I can. I do an evidence viewing to see what they got, to check change of custody, to check, like I was just in a case in Washington. It was a double homicide. And I had an item, and no fault of anybody. This was just an innocent mistake. Somebody collected an item and it said stun gun on it, right? I open up the bag. It's a flashlight, not a stun gun. There's no stun gun in there. Okay. This was just a mistake. Okay. And I wouldn't, it will get mentioned, but it's not, there isn't
Sure.
a lot of other mistakes around that. Do you know what I mean? So it was an error.
got it. Yeah, of course.
Somebody thought it was a stun gun, and that's how they labeled it. And, you know, they got a new system. They're working on this particular location. It's all, you know, I'm not out for blood. I just want to know what happened. In this case, I went there,
Sure.
and there were two sets of evidence. One is the evidence that the law enforcement collected. And it was the mattress from Ethan and the knife sheath that was collected. Both of them have falsified change of custody. Both of them, it's not just a knife sheath, it's a couple other things. And many of the other items have correct change of custody on them.
You can go ahead, Brent Turvey. I'm going to be contacting you now. There's a new faulty chain of custody, and it has to do with Kaylee Gonsalves' cell phone. That's a lie. Detective Mowry had Kaylee Gonsalves' cell phone from 11/25/2022 and left with the cell phone and the extraction from Walla Walla and had it for half of 11/25 that day, all of 2026, 2027, all when, you know, what's his name was on his horror tour starting it up. So the day that, the same day that they say, let's put a bee out on the lookout for a white Elantra internally, that really didn't start until 11/27, because that's when Payne actually had, like, it's just laughable, is at the same time that Kaylee's phone is being lied about and the extraction is being passed around, okay, internally, but though nobody on paper, nobody thinks that anybody's ever had this. And then Maury lies about when he got it on the 29th. And when he got it, he just took all of the phones, placed them in the evidence locker, and then took all the extractions, and they were placed into the forensic, computer area. And he writes on his report for 11/29/2022, he says, I'll start looking at the extractions at my earliest convenience. Go suck a fucking goat's dick. You are a fucking liar. Okay. Add Kaylee's phone to the fucking, to the list of the lies on chain of custody. It's sad. It's bad. And it's a really crucial time.
With multiple people signing them. So we know that they know how to do it correctly. And it's not improper. It's illegal. It's a falsification of evidence. It's actually tampering with evidence. That would be the charge. And also false swearing. You can't lie. It's a sworn document that you're filling out. So it's not like
of course.
Oops, I slipped and fell and filled it out for everybody wrong. No. That's not what happened. How did I know whether or not I had received everything from Ann Taylor? I can tell you that I didn't. Because when I got to the bed frame that Ann Taylor's team had forced the police to collect before they destroyed the house, along with many other bloody items that the police did not want to check, did not want to collect, I found the hair on it, in this item. I'm like, what is going on here? This looks like a palm print on the side, and then there's all this hair there. Whose is this? And I look at it, it's Ethan's, the bed frame. It's white with wooden slats. And I'm like, what's this? And they're like, oh, that's the hair. Don't worry about that. We'll talk to you about that later.
He's getting a little excited there. It's not Ethan's bed frame. It's actually Xana's. It's her room. But we all know Ethan and Xana. Ethan was the one, though, that was on the bed. But you hear the last part right there? Ann Taylor's like, we'll talk about that. Like, wait, what?
Looks like a palm print on the side, and then there's all this hair there. Whose is this? And I look at it, it's Ethan's, the bed frame. It's white with wooden slats. And I'm like, what's this? And they're like, oh, that's the hair. Don't worry about that. We'll talk to you about that later. So we go back and we talk about it later, and they disclosed to me new autopsy photos that they hadn't given to me before. And other photographs that they'd taken of that, defense photographs that they had taken of the house before it was demolished that they had not given to me. So they were playing their cards very close to the vest in terms of sharing material, even with me, which I found to be.
Okay, hold on though. You may think that, but if Ann Taylor continues to ask for discovery, okay, right? And she's continuing to ask for stuff, and then they start trickling them in, okay? So there's going to be a paper trail on this. And the only reason I can speak on it, I think we should just caution a little bit with that, is because I was just going through stuff. And I went over it with you guys. And it was about, it's in an expert report as well, that the raw files, it looks like it could be a duplicate because it could be a close-up, but you're really not missing any. So I'm just interested in that. I'm going to advise to caution on the pictures. But this palm print and saying, oh, we'll talk about the hair. That's, what do you mean we'll talk about it later? Like, what are you fucking talking about? How has this not been handled? That's what he's, I think, getting at. Is this should have already been, tested. There should be, what do you mean we're going to talk about this? How, like, what the fuck?
The house before it was demolished that they had not given to me. So they were playing their cards very close to the vest in terms of sharing material, even with me, which I found to be, I let them know that was not okay. You got to share with me everything, because I anticipate being on stand.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm going to get this question from a very smart prosecutor named Donna, who's going to ask me, how do you know you've seen everything? And I'm going to have to throw you under the bus, and I'll do it.
That's right. That's right. Say, sorry, I don't know that answer. They filed so many pretrial motions here. There was a lot of pretrial litigation in this case. And I don't remember any pretrial litigation dealing with chains of custody and whether or not certain items should be used, right? I think they did do it on the knife sheath, right? But I don't know if they did it on anything else.
They didn't know until like a month. No, it was like maybe a few weeks before the plea, because it got brought that one of the investigators brought a question to my attention, which led us down this rabbit hole. And I'm like, oh my God, you're right. Because I don't think like that. I don't think that people are lying. But I also think as a scientist, which is that if I see something wrong in one spot, I know I got to look in the other spots too. I can't just now accept it to my attention, which led us down like a month. No, it was like maybe a few weeks before the plea, because it got brought, that one of the investigators brought a question to my attention, which led us down this rabbit hole. And I'm like, oh my God, you're right. Because I don't think like that. I don't think that people are lying. But I also think as a scientist, which is that if I see something wrong in one spot, I know I got to look in the other spots too. I can't just now accept it without question. So you're always supposed to be checking change of custody. And I'd love to take credit for finding everything, but I didn't. I'm the forensic scientist though. So if an investigator brings me a piece of evidence and asks me about it, then I give my opinion, then that becomes evidence. And then it causes us to look at other things, and the change of custody were all full.
Okay, so check this out. One of Ann Taylor's, this is amazing information for me. One of Ann Taylor, so fucking A, oh my God. Okay, one of Ann Taylor's investigators basically was questioning the fact that back when they were working, so think about me working, okay? And I'm and I'm bringing something to, let's say, like Jill Bolton's attention in the Dan Moore case. I'm like, hey, you know that 911 call that Jennifer Drake says that she made? Yeah, how about this? I went ahead and pulled the FOIA, and there is no 911 calls that were ever placed from that cell phone number to 911 in Kootenai County, number one. But then I went ahead and I said, well, I want every 911 call that was placed in Kootenai County that day, just to see if at the same time that this alleged 911 call happened, maybe there's a different number and we can go that way. Okay. And so I got all the 911 calls that day. No 911 call anywhere around when this 911 call was supposed to happen. And I'm like, holy shit. Not only do we have now 2 points, which is Jennifer Drake's cell phone through Cellbrite is showing no 911 call ever made. Then Kootenai County is showing that no 911 call was ever received there. And this was the basis of putting Jennifer Drake in motherfucking Hayden at the time of the murder, which is an alibi. And so I shatter the alibi. And I bring this to a lawyer's, she's like, well, how do you know this? And I was like, well, go FOIA it your fucking self. If you don't believe me, I mean, here's just the results. Go get it yourself. Maybe you'll even get more information. And I said, and I went and did the next town over because the 911 call was house. So think about this. That's how I'm thinking about it. Like, okay, I'm bringing something to your attention, right? And then let's say that I remember the fact that I brought something to your attention, and then you tried to fluff me off to just say, listen, sometimes, the dispatch just isn't right. And so it's just clearly the 911 call happens. They have a recording of it. I was like, I don't give a fuck. I was like, there's no chain of custody. There's no chain of custody on the 911 call recording. Are you aware of that, Jill Bolton? Yeah. I was like, here's the report. Here's some fat fuck named Van Leuven who's saying that, oh, he just somehow just writes up a report and just puts it in evidence, a CD that's the 911 call. I'm like, where the fuck did this come from? There's no chain of, like, did he get it? Where did he get this from? Where did he get this recording from? And I was like, he purposely didn't fill anything out and write anything down because I know that he didn't get it from fucking Hayden or Kootenai County because there is none. Again, this is chain of custody issues. Like, where did this come from? So again, the big thing is that Jennifer Drake did not make a phone call and be transferred from Kootenai County to Bonner County, then to Boundary County. That did not fucking happen. And I was adamant of it. And I said, so think about it. Now, if I work for Jill and she just kind of blows me off or tells me something because I'm just so like, oh, okay, yeah, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just a new paralegal. I'm a yes woman. Okay, well, this is just what I found. Okay, then I'll go back to working. And I just move on, right? Then this dude comes along and I'm like, oh, let me just take him what I found back like a year ago and see what he thinks about it. And he's over here probably like, just like he said, this investigator brought me something. That investigator brought that to somebody else before him. Promise. This is what it's telling me. And that somebody told that investigator, whether it was an expert, whether it was another investigator, whether it was Ann Taylor, somebody buried it. That's what it looks like to me. Hey, you know, that's what I see. Hell fucking yeah. Woo, this is fucking grimy. This is so juicy. Oh my God. I wonder who the investigator is.
Falsified on those as well.
I mean, that would have been an amazing pretrial motion, because then you put that out there, you show the weakness, and then you put the police officers on the stand and they have to answer to this. And, you know, I'm still trying cases. I did a jury last week and I had a police officer admit to me that, yes, evidence helps. Well, gee, go figure. Yes, it does. And so it's amazing. Yeah, it was such an amazing answer. And so, you know, I look at this and I think to myself, these are defense dreams, right? These types of motions, to be able to put this out there and possibly not only cut through evidence, but if you cut through enough evidence that the prosecution can't use, and if a judge tosses it out, or even if the judge doesn't toss it out, you're preserving all these rights on appeal. It just is amazing to me that, given all the other work that they did, and maybe you're right, maybe this comes down to the fact that she realized she was going to have some issues with regard to these leaks, and thought, we better get out of this case as quickly as we can. And if that's the case, that is an injustice to everyone in this case, not only Bryan Kohberger, but everyone.
I will submit to you that the misconduct goes further than just Ann Taylor. It goes to Becca Barlow, it goes to the other attorney, and it goes to their forensic psychologist, who was behaving in a way that is completely improper. And certainly that was my experience with her, but also was the experience of Mr. Kohberger. She was there, instead of in her role as an evaluator, she was doing all kinds of other things that she shouldn't be doing. And I've worked so many death penalty cases, behaving in a
Kohberger, but everyone.
I will submit to you that the misconduct goes further than just Ann Taylor. It goes to Becca Barlow, it goes to the other attorney, and it goes to their forensic psychologist, who was behaving in a way that is completely improper.
What? Oh my God. What the fuck is going on? He said it goes beyond Ann Taylor. He is calling Becca Barlow out. Holy shit. Oh shit. He doesn't say Matt's name, but he says the entire team basically, but then says the relationship
is an injustice to everyone in this case, not only Bryan Kohberger, but everyone.
I will submit to you that the misconduct goes further than just Ann Taylor. It goes to Becca Barlow, it goes to the other attorney, and it goes to their forensic psychologist, who was behaving in a way that is completely improper. And certainly that was my experience with her, but also was the experience of Mr. Kohberger. She was there, instead of in her role as an evaluator, she was doing all kinds of other things that she shouldn't be doing. I've worked so many death penalty cases. The lines are so very clear about what your role is, what you're supposed to do, what you're not supposed to do, the types of communication that you have, difference between treatment and diagnosis, which is a therapeutic position, and then assessment of mental faculty for a forensic assessment, a forensic position. These two areas are in conflict, and you can't have the same person doing both. And so in this case, it was the lines were so blurred for everybody, myself not included, because I've done this so many times. I protect myself very carefully because I anticipate testimony and I anticipate having to answer questions under oath. And I alone can be held accountable, whereas somebody who's not going to testify, or a lawyer, will not be held to account the same way. So I agree with you. It's a travesty, but what I think people need to understand from this is that it is far worse than most people understand. The conduct that was engaged in by the defense team, the conduct that was engaged in by the person who made the leak, depending on who that is, the lack of transparency of the defense team to Mr. Kohberger and all the other allegations of being coerced. I mean, he's not going to make that allegation unless he has the evidence. And if she's communicating with him over text messages, well, guess what?
Right, exactly. And the real travesty, beyond, obviously locking up somebody if you don't have the proof, but the real travesty too is if let's say that the judge says, you know what, Mr. Kohberger, we're going to let you withdraw your plea. We're going to start this over from the beginning. I mean, the expense alone to the taxpayer to have to do this again would be horrible. I mean, lawyers take.
And Taylor should have to cough up her $2 million. I mean, if any and all of this is true, I mean, what? What is going on here? Oh my God. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry, but it takes cases like this. It's just a fact to literally bring something down. And when you hit rock bottom, that's when you can start building something new. I mean, do you know how many people contacted me early on in this case? Before there was ever a defendant contacting, emailing the channel, that how corrupt Idaho was, the corruption, the people that were there that were the citizens of Idaho that were so fucking fed up with this, like this state and the shit that has gone on here. And that, it's everything opposite than the G's are saying. I'll just tell you that. Okay. Nobody has ever hit me up once in my entire existence of running this channel during this case and has ever hit me up and says, I'm from Idaho and I love it here and you have us all wrong and blah, 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 blah. Never once. What has been said is that everything about the corruption is there. It's horrible. And, but it's such a pretty place. And it's, it's just something that you can't get out of. Never once. So I'm just saying, for what it's worth, nobody is emailing me saying, Lana, Idaho's the fucking best place ever. I cannot, like, I've been to Idaho multiple times and it is pretty, but there, you get the, I got to look around and see where the fuck I'm at and see who's around me. Okay. When you're in Idaho to say like, should I even be talking? Like who's around, who shady ass people and pointing to the government.
Oaths. And if you can't trust that your own lawyer is going to do what's best for you, or at least put you in a position where you make the decision, right? Here's all the evidence. Here's Dr. Turvey's report. Here's everybody else's findings. Here's what we've discovered. And at the end of the day, they're offering to take the death penalty off the table. Do you want it or not based on the evidence? That's one thing, right? And there's a lot of people who I think should go to trial that sometimes don't because they don't want to take the risk. And that's a decision that clients make. But that is completely different than being put in a position where you're not told about pieces of evidence, or you're not told about strength of evidence, or you're not told about the way experts view evidence. That's a completely separate conversation.
Yes. So to your first point, let's talk about the money, because that's been covered a lot. And I think it's important for people to understand that the death penalty is expensive. It's one of the reasons why many states stopped doing it. Because when you are working a case and you're working, now let me give you full disclosure. My contract was for about 25 grand. That's about $10,000 more than I normally make on a given case. All right. And that's disclosing a lot because most experts don't like to talk about money. If I worked only for the prosecution, I'd be able to charge between $150,000 and $200,000 per case. I don't do that. I work for either side. The money is not what's important to me. Most of the money is not going to have a lot of money will be spent by the defense, but most of the money will be spent by the state, all right, to try to make their case. I have not seen cases spend this much money in a long time, and this much money for so little result. The money.
Okay, something's weird here. 25,000. He's about to get into it, I bet. 25,000, in my opinion, for like a Brent Turvey to go through all of what you're talking about, how many hours it would take to go through all that. divide that by how many hours, and you're going to see, like, just go ahead and divide it by $300 an hour. That's, you guys, that's cheap. Okay. It is fucking cheap.
Shouldn't even be the conversation. The conversation should be how for so little result. The money shouldn't even be the conversation. The conversation should be how did we spend this much money and we still don't have answers from
Yeah.
the prosecution, or we have overstated, overcompetent evidence. And I can tell you it's because they basically, handed the investigation and the forensics over to the FBI and let them do it. And just kind of like, well, we don't really know anything about that. We'll let you do it. And the FBI were overconfident and wrote reports that said one thing and then had to testify in a way that reduced their confidence about the car, about the DNA, about how people were found, about the cell tower stuff. I mean, it's all just too disgusting. Again, it's disgusting for me to spend this amount of money and not have straight answers from anybody on the state side, everybody having to reduce themselves. They took this very 100% posture of guilt, and then you get them under oath and all of a sudden it's 70%, maybe 80%, I don't know. So there is the money issue.
Yeah.
But the
It's
money
really-
issue, when you are morally certain that the death penalty is the right thing for your state, it's going to cost you, because we do not put people to death in this country when we think that there might be innocent. All right? That's
Yeah,
a rule.
sure.
I mean, we don't kill innocent people, right? We can agree with that, I hope. We don't want to kill innocent people. So in the search for truth, resources will be expended, not just money, but time and effort and emotions and all that good stuff. So that's the first thing. What I would expect is if Hippler says, I'm going to grant it for you, let's start over. Great. Let's get a real death qualified attorney that actually has experience working in death penalty trials. Not somebody who's a dealer who knows how to make a plea and has maybe worked a couple cases. I mean, somebody who actually knows what they're doing. Because this is a case where now everybody's sort of on the line. The second thing is, if anybody on the side of the state or the defense has engaged in misconduct, they have opened themselves up to litigation and lawsuits. I worked on a case in actually has experience working in death penalty trials. Not somebody who's a dealer who knows how to make a plea and has maybe worked a couple cases. I mean, somebody who actually knows what they're doing. Because this is a case where now everybody's sort of on the line. The second thing is, if anybody on the side of the state or the defense has engaged in misconduct, they have opened themselves up to litigation and lawsuits. I worked on a case in Connecticut. Versus Birch and Henning, the Birch and Henning case. These were it was a home invasion where the only evidence in the case was DNA from blood alleged to have been found on a towel. That was the only evidence, all right, in the whole case. And I did the examination of that evidence in the case, and I found that the expert in that case had falsified that item. And that case went all the way to the Supreme Court of Connecticut. That expert was Henry Lee, my mentor. Now, what happened?
Wow.
He got sued personally, and he got sued to the tune of $30 million, and he lost. He refused to show up to defend himself. He knew what he had done. He had dry labbed this result for the police. There was a bunch of other cases that were going on at the same time where the same allegations were being made. But this was back in 2011. So when experts lie, there should be consequences. And in many states,
Abso-fucking-lutely.
where
Just like
lawyers
police
lie,
or anybody.
courts
Yes,
aren't perfect,
absolutely.
there should be consequences. And that's a separate conversation. What I'm
Okay, that right there, read between the lines, ladies and gentlemen, that was all towards Cyree. I hate to say it, but that was all towards Cyree. And the fact of the matter is that when you sign that NDA, you sign an NDA, yeah, you sign it with Ann Taylor, but Bryan Kohberger, like, that's who I believe can also sue.
concerned about is people have already kind of decided, well, he's guilty, so he's done. He already said he was guilty. Again, 1/3 of defendants who are investigated by the Innocence Project or are found to have been wrongfully convicted, 1/3 of them were coerced by their defense attorneys. This is a common concept. I am so grateful to you as an attorney, as a criminal justice professional, that you and I can meet, regardless of the side that we take, on this very even plane of, hey, we don't do that. We let the client decide.
Right.
You give them my job is to educate attorneys educate the client. And my job then becomes maybe educate the court, maybe educate the jury, but ultimately there's a trier of fact that's going to come in and make a decision. And we want them to have the best and fullest and most complete set of information that exists. You and I can agree on that without getting mad at each other. That's not the world we live in
Absolutely.
right now. Nobody wants.
Love it. Love it. Absolutely. You hear her say, absolutely. Absolutely. Because it's called ethics. It's called integrity. Either you have it or you don't. I run this channel. You best believe the fuck. But my moderators know. They'll be fucking sending me no bullshit in my emails or whatever. Like, listen, we're here to cover these cases. We're here to cover them factually. We are here to defend all of our constitutional rights. We are here to be and go get the materials and be transparent with, if we're saying something, hey, this is why we're saying it. If we're questioning something, this is why we're questioning it. And we have the receipts and this is what we stand by. Okay? The fluff shit, go fuck yourself. All right? It's all been fluff around this case. Every single thing about this case has been fluff. Fluff. One piece of evidence, a sheath. Verse what? Verse what? One piece of evidence, and it's a foreign object. It's not DNA on one of the victim's legs that's semen. Okay? It is a foreign object in a crime scene, right? That now we're also questioning, like, just everything surrounding that. Was it on the ground? Was it really tucked like that picture says? Why does the bench notes that someone's taking the notes talk about the fact that it's on the floor? How come none of the first responding police officers, not a single one of them, talking about the fact, did you see that big fucking sheath? That thing was huge, just sticking out there. Did you know, everybody that walked up into that room? Have you found a weapon yet? No, you see that big ass sheath in the third floor bedroom, right? Nobody said that. Nobody did. So that car, nothing's in it. His apartment, nothing's in it. And it's like, you know, yeah, are there some anomalies here? Yeah, there are. But to sit here and tell me that he was going to go on to be some serial killer and you're basing this off of, you know, like what? And I'm just saying, start eliminating the things like you should be able to answer some of my questions, which go to the foundation of the investigation. Those are the things that we question, which is when you wanted to be Jack D or Jack Showalter, you didn't give a shit about that car. And in fact, you wanted to be taken over by what looks like the police. Then you have to assign the 423 card to somebody that it wasn't, you know, then who's the 429 card that comes back? I mean, come on. Why is the neighbor saying that, hey, I want to get talked to over here? And he's saying at 417, I heard the dog barking. Are you kidding me? 417, that's when the damn thud's happening. He's able to know that come on. Again, just anomalies over here. The dog's outside barking, or at least you could hear from 30 minutes. If the sliding glass door is just there, why isn't the dog just coming in? You know, that's what Hippler thinks. Hippler thinks that the dog just let itself back in. It went out the same door that it came, you know, it came back in the same door it went out. We don't even know if it's the fucking dog in that house. First of all, that dog is not a barker. How do we not know it's the canine that actually Moscow Police Department actually owns when they're doing all their drug shit? We have officers lying about who was working a plainclothes operation that night. So please, what evidence is there? What evidence is it? Was it so sloppy and so disorganized that this happened in 13 minutes or happened in 10 minutes or happened in 2, then you look at the surviving roommates and what they're saying cannot possibly happen like the way that they're saying in that order, because guess what? Right off the rip, Dylan calls nobody first. Bethany calls Dylan. So what? It is not until Bethany calls Dylan. Do you guys don't know what was told to the grand jury? The grand jurors believed that Dylan called Bethany first. Do you understand that? I can prove it because guess what? We printed off the unsealed documents. How in the world did the grand jurors think that they are told that Dylan called Bethany first? That is in right here in this report. It's just unbelievable. Then, while they're texting back and forth, Dylan's making phone calls from her Snapchat to Kaylee's Snapchat, to Xana's Snapchat, and to Ethan's Snapchat. And based off of the evidence that was pulled from everybody's phones, from their third party, from like the Snapchat Dylan's, every single one of those calls were answered. And in what was told to the grand jury is that they were unanswered. That's not what the document says. But they were able to present to the grand jury and acting like it was unanswered and just saying that. We'll go actually use the forensic download. And it says in Dylan's forensic download that when she called Ethan, Kaylee, and Xana from Snap, they were actually answered. Do you understand that when you call on Snapchat, it'll just ring and ring and ring and ring and ring and ring? There's no answering machine. There's no voicemail that can make it seem like it was picked up and that you talked to some voicemail. Explain to me how after 4:25, when everybody's supposed to be dead, right? Or mortally wounded, like, how is Kaylee picking up the phone to use Snapchat to answer that? How is Ethan? And if you don't believe me, it's in the report. It's in the documents. That's nuts. All the lies that were told to the grand jury, the lies that were continuing, and that Ann Taylor was attempting to stop, but she just, I don't know. Did she not get it? Did she not know how to like present this information? She just put it in front of the judge, and she didn't walk the judge through like, this is not accurate. She was just expecting that the judge could read her mind. That's how it looked to me.
Wants anybody to have a fair shake. Nobody wants anybody to the truth to come out. People decide who the monsters are, and then they go down that road instead of doing the investigation.
It's interesting you say that, because just this last week I did a jury and it was an attempted murder case, and the client had another lawyer for the first 7 years that his case was pending. And we came in, and I think in about 8 months decided to take the case to trial. And this guy was trying to push this guy to take a deal every which way from Sunday. And we came in and
Okay, here it is. This is from Dylan's extraction. At 4:27 and 47 seconds, Dylan's phone calls Kaylee's phone, makes an outgoing call. It says it was answered in the extraction, answered at 4:27 and 47 seconds for 7 seconds. Now that's to herself. That could be actually picked up. So the 7 seconds there could be, she got the voicemail. Okay. Then she tries to call Xana. And same thing here. It says that it was answered, but this is to her cell phone. So you would need the cell records of actually the incoming person to determine if and in fact it was a missed call or if it was actually answered. Or if it was, even if it's a missed call, then it could show that there was a voicemail, or at least the voicemail box picked up. Okay. But you need the incoming person's phone to do that. Those are the two calls that were via cell phone to cell phone for DM. She called Kaylee at 4:27, 47 seconds, and then Xana at 4:28 and 44 seconds. But prior to that, prior to that, at 4:24 and 39 seconds, Dylan Mortensen uses her Snapchat app because that's how she communicated. It's the only thing she had, I think, with Ethan. I don't even know if she had his cell phone number. She makes an outgoing call from Snapchat, and it's right here documented. It says third-party application. Just Snapchat. It is answered. So at 4:24 and 39 seconds, for 13 seconds, Dylan and who's ever on the opposite end of that cell phone with Snapchat that's on Ethan, it's answered for 13 seconds. Then what happens 4 minutes later at 4:29? What appears to be a black SUV that looks pretty similar to a Ford Explorer comes on over to 1122 King Road, which would be consistent with, looks like Ethan could have potentially been called over there because, I don't know, Xana's on the ground, passed out, whatever, don't know. But Ethan's Snapchat answered at 4:24 and 39 seconds, and that was left off of explaining that to the grand jury on purpose. And that's why when you go and you actually look at, you're like, holy shit. And I'm going to read it for you guys. This is how sneaky the government is. On page 4 of the argument for the, hey, we need to get this in through hearsay and it meets the exception. Their argument is they use DM's phone records and they make it a point to say, we're showing you a timeline. And it says that from 4:19 and 7 seconds to 4:21 and 50 seconds, DM attempts to call Bethany. That is not true. That is a fucking false statement. It's in their argument, and this is how they got it in the grand jury. The grand jury was told that DM attempts to call Bethany between 4:19 and 7 seconds to 4:21 and 50 seconds. That is false. Bethany is calling DM. That begins at 4:19 and 6 seconds. That's that phone call that DM answers, and they talk for 24 seconds. Then after that, and then after DM calls 2 people, she then calls Bethany back and says that nobody's answering. Nothing happens until Bethany alerts Dylan. Now, what also you have to understand is that if the 420 vehicle that's flying away at 420 and some change, in order for anybody to have seen that person, and that person being DM, she would have had to have seen him to give him time to like leave the house, to get into the car, to leave. At 4:19 and 7 seconds, Bethany calls DM, right? 24-second phone call. Hey, did you hear that? No, I didn't hear that. Remember? I didn't hear the big bang and fireworks and all that shit. That's what that phone call was about. There could have been no opening, closing, opening, closing, opening, closing, opening, closing. Oh, on the third time I see somebody. There's not enough time for any of that shit. Because why? DM has to, literally, the call's at 4:19 and 7 seconds. Add 23 seconds onto that. Now you're at what? 4:19. And I mean, this person is already out of the house in order to be the person that's driving away in the white car and leaving at 4:20 and 42 seconds. This is staged as fuck. And to prove it some more, they had to lie to the grand jury and make it seem like Dylan attempted to call BF. Why? Because it's the only way that it would make any sense. If Dylan's over here, she's alerting BF to what's going on, right? Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense that Dylan says that she heard this stuff happening. Kaylee's going up with the dog and all this stuff and then running down and running up. So you were hearing this beginning at what time you just sat there and didn't do shit? No, Bethany calls you first, and that was the mistake for the little lie, I believe. That's the exculpatory evidence, in my opinion, is that in order for this to work the way that they want it to work, Bethany or Dylan would have to be the first person to alert Bethany to something, because Bethany's the one that's dealing with everything, which means that Dylan has to be attempting to call people. I'm trying to call Kaylee. I'm trying to call Xana because I don't know who it is and who's crying and shit like that. None of that takes place until Bethany calls Dylan. 4:19 in 6 seconds. Then add 24 seconds onto that. Then she hangs up, and then 20 seconds later, she calls Kaylee. Or I'm sorry, she calls Xana first. And this is what should blow all of your minds. Why are you calling Xana first if you believe that you thought what you heard was Kaylee? Right? Well, she calls Xana first. You know, hangs up, then calls Kaylee, then calls back to Bethany, doesn't even call Maddie. So when she's saying that no one's answering, you didn't even call everybody yet. Then at that point, they talked for another, like that time, it's 43 seconds. And then this is what should just blow all of your minds, which is, well, in order to be seen, if you're the person in the house and to get to that car, well, wow, this really doesn't add up, does it? Because there's no time. There is no time for, I heard Kaylee, who I thought was Kaylee, saying there's someone that there's here, and it was between 10 or 20 minutes, and then that's when I saw the person. The fuck? That's impossible. That's impossible. That's what she said. Then she makes a huge boo-boo when she wants to tell the world through an interview on 11/17 with Detective Gooch. And she wants to say that when she was in Bethany's room after running down there, after seeing Xana, and, oh, I just thought she was passed out, and I go down and I get to her room. That when I was in Bethany's room, I then saw a vehicle. Well, it looked like I thought it was a black truck leaving. I saw its red lights. You know, there's not red lights in the front. It's the back. It's the brake lights. It's the running lights. I saw that when I got into Bethany's room and I was on the bed. Well, do you know when that would have had to happen? Well, let's see. The car goes past when, because we have a camera. That vehicle that goes past is at 4:24 in a couple seconds. Do you know where Dylan is at 4:24 and some change? Well, let me tell you where Dylan's at. They try to sell this to the grand jury. They put it in writing. They say, I'll let you guys even see it because it just got unredacted. This is what they show the grand jury. It's fucking sick. It's disgusting. Here it is. Hector, show it. Show the world. Oh, sure, Lana, no problem. I'll show the world. Here it is. I have a projector. This is what they use in court. So here you guys go. Enjoy. This is the lie they tell the grand jury. And nobody has a problem with it. There you go. This is the way a timeline, they say. DM sends a message to EG at 2:10 and 29 seconds, inquiring if he is driving. The state submits this text message exchange is not hearsay because it's not being offered for the truth of the matter asserted his driving status. Instead, it would be offered to show a timeline for the night. You don't need that, though. But example is DM was awake and texting at 2:10 and 29 seconds. Well, her phone was just doing that. We don't know if that was her. Then they jump to say the next thing that we want to talk about, they don't talk about anything from 2:10 and 29 seconds to 4:19 and 7 seconds. What they're trying to make it seem like is that DM is asleep, right? But this is how the state presented. This is the grand jury exhibit. Then they start with this, which is really sneaky, 4:19 and 7 seconds to 4:21 and 50 seconds. They said during this time, DM attempts to call BF. That is misleading at best, false at worst, because DM didn't attempt to call BF. BF attempts to call DM. But this is how they're trying to get away with it. We know the truth. BF calls DM, but look at this shit. Then, after calling BF, it's then continues to say, well, not only BF, but Xana and Kaylee and Maddie. All calls were unanswered. That's correct. But not if you're going off of the extraction of Dylan. And that's what they went off of. Off of the extraction for Dylan, it actually shows that they are answered. You have to go off the extractions of the other folks. How do you know that, Lana? Because I have the example. Here it is. Trying to call Kaylee at that time. Answered. Trying to call Xana. Answered. You have to, if you're going to use Dylan's extraction, you actually have to use Kaylee or Maddie's to show that it was actually unanswered. And that's not what was presented to the grand jury. Then they say, hey, after that, don't they see how they do not even mention Ethan because it's only during this time period. They want to stay away from anything to do with Ethan. Why? Because the Ethan call, which we're going to get to here, which they don't talk about, so we'll go in their order, which is, they say the next thing they want to talk about is the records of these calls are hearsay as they each do meet the statement, blah, blah. 4:22 and 8 seconds to 4:24 and 27 seconds. They want to say, this is what's going on back and forth. And this should all be allowed because it's what they say. You see that timestamp there? All of these are happening between this time and this time. What time is that car that's leaving at 4:23? The SUV that's leaving? You have to be down in Bethany's room no later than 4:24, and like you better be there now because you can't see it. Because why? Oh wait, there's more. She's still not in Bethany's room yet. Why? How do we know that? Well, because they say all of the above declarations are present sense impressions and excited utterances. Yeah, if it's true. This is supported by DM's grand jury testimony where she indicates she just witnessed a startling event, i.e., heard noises in residence and saw an unknown male. You could not possibly see that because look at the time. You had to have seen this happen way before this because they're already fucking drove away at 4:20 and some change. You cannot see. It can't be during this time. And Bethany said she did not tell me when we were on the phone. But hey, we'll continue to go on to show how more ridiculous this is. Then it has to be either contemporaneously happening or immediately following the startling event, which leaves no time for reflection or fabrications. And I'm over here like, you guys are sick. This is what Ann was trying to argue, but just sucked at it. DM's grand jury testimony attached as Exhibit S3 at 4:24 and 39 seconds. This is long, like, holy crap. This is proof that she is still, well, first of all, at 4:24 and 39 seconds, DM calls Ethan Chapin. You see that? and it says call unanswered. This is a flat out fucking lie. Lana, how can you prove that? Right here. Ethan's Snapchat. This is your proof of a flat out lie written in a document. 4:24 and 39 seconds. Answered. Third party application, Ethan Chapin, outgoing call. This is Dylan's extraction. And it's showing that it was an answered Snapchat and for 13 seconds. This was not unanswered. This was answered. And so these people, these sick bastards, put that Ethan Chapin's call right here was unanswered. That is false. At worst case scenario, at best case scenario, misleading. I don't know how, this is a false statement. This is Dylan's extraction, inner extraction. They're using the third party call, which was, it says it right here, same time. This is the transaction, and it says answered. Now, how do we know that that's accurate? Okay. How do we know that's accurate? Well, because we know that she calls Emily Allant, same way through Snapchat. Emily Allant, outgoing, third-party app. That's a Snapchat app. Answered. 108 minutes. 108 seconds, sorry. Right here. That's what it looks like when somebody answers. Emily Allant answered that call. Ethan Chapin's phone answered when Dylan called. They're lying. Lying. Answered. 11:50 and 58 seconds. That's what it looks like when somebody answers Snapchat, because there is no such thing as a voicemail. Same thing, Snapchat. Ethan answered. 13 seconds, 18 seconds, 19 seconds, whatever it is there. Then if that wasn't enough bullshit, here's to show you that there is no way that DM saw any fucking vehicle, but yet how did she know that there was a vehicle? Well, take a look. Just when that wasn't enough, that they lied about the fact that DM calls Ethan Chapin unanswered, lie. This phone record, like the other records of calls, is not a statement pursuant to blah, blah. DM and BF continue to text at 4:24 and 58 seconds. The state is claiming that Dylan and Bethany are texting, right? They continue to text. Well, now right here, this is proof that if they are still texting, we know that the vehicle, the SUV, the black one that pulled out of that parking spot at 4:23 and some change, then came down, passing by the house, is long motherfucking gone. Long gone. Okay? She's still in her room, according to the state. I'm screwed, though, or I'm scared. However you want to look at it, it does not matter. The purpose of this is to show that she's still either, by her account, she's in Bethany's room, because that's the only way that she could see that vehicle, which shows, and I take her at her word. Take her at her word so that you can show that these are staged. That means that you and Bethany are in the same room together, shotgunning text messages back and forth to each other, right? In the same room, because that's the only way that you could see the vehicle that was passing by your house at 4:24 and some seconds. Look at this. Then if that wasn't enough, BF responds at 4:25 and 16 seconds. Again, that car is long gone. I know, but it's better than being alone. Again, both statements are admissible as present sense impressions and excited utterances as they are describing an event or their state of mind. No, they're staging the whole fucking thing, if you take them at their word. Because the only way that Dylan could see the vehicle leaving, like she said, she was in Bethany's room. Again, it doesn't matter if she says, I'm screwed or I'm scared, because that's not the argument. The argument is, where is Dylan when she's writing this? And the argument is that Dylan, by her own statements on 11/17, she says when she got down to Bethany's room, they locked the door, she's in there, and that she then saw, while she was sitting on Bethany's bed, she saw out the window what she thought was a black truck, but she saw a vehicle go by and she saw the red lights. And do you understand where that puts her in order to see that vehicle? That's going to put you in Bethany's room at 4:23 and some change / 4:24, no later. You have to be in that bedroom at that time in order to see that. So put her down there. Put her where she says that she is. And then what you would then have is these two then continuing to do this stupid fucking texting back and forth. And who does that? And then if that's not enough, right? Then, again, both statements, blah, blah, blah. At 4:27 and 47 seconds, DM calls Kaylee, call unanswered. Well, let's take a look at that. (4:27 and 47 seconds). 4:27 and 47 seconds, answered. Again, lie. Then she calls Xana, again, for answered. 7 seconds, 4 seconds, 4:27 and 47 seconds. These are these two calls. So you cannot use, if you use Dylan's extraction, you cannot put in parentheses, you cannot say these words. Because based on her extraction, and that's what they did. Right here it says, at the grand jury, we did not use, remember, they refused to use Kaylee's, Maddie's, anybody's that was a victim. So here, they said that we're using DM right here. Regarding their conversation with each other on November 13th, 2022, the phone records were discovered on the hard drive. DM, and then it says iPhone extraction. That's what we're using, was provided to the defense on April 15th, 2023. And this will be State's Exhibit 18 for the grand jury record. If you're using, again, you have to use the incoming person's phone records to be able to prove if something was answered or not answered. But I can tell you this, you cannot use Dylan Morton's extraction to try to say if a phone call was or was not answered. But if you're going to try to go that route, it's going to say that it was answered. And that's what it did say. And yet they lied to the grand jury. And this is fucking crazy to me. Answered. Do I believe that those were answered? Hell, I don't truly know. But I can promise you this. I know for a fact that the Snapchat one was answered by Ethan because I know how this shit works. This is my forte. And if you're using Snapchat, it would say unanswered. There is no chance to have any type of a voicemail. So this was 1000% answered. And if you look at the time, that means Ethan's alive at 4:24 and 38 seconds. If you want to go based off of this stupid shit. 4:24 and 39 seconds, Snapchat. 13 seconds, Dylan calls, just like he called Emily Allant through Snapchat. It was an outgoing call, third-party application. This is the snap. He answers, and they talk for 13 seconds at 4:24 and 39 seconds. These were all lies to the grand jury. Everything. This is why Turvey's like, this is disgusting. You've never seen anything like this in your life. And that's why I was trying to tell Chris, dude, you're wrong about what cars they are. But we got it. Don't worry.
I talked to him about that deal, and I talked to him about why it was less of a risk because it was much less time than he would serve if he lost. But at the end of the day, he has a right to have his day in court. And we tried that case, and that jury came back in about 4.5 hours with a not guilty. So, you have to be able to, and for clients that say, I did not do this, I am actually innocent, and I want to have my day in court, then they're willing to take a risk.
That's exactly right. If you have somebody who's guilty and they get a good plea deal, they're going to take it, right? And that's the problem.
Yeah.
That sets up a stereotype. And if you apply that stereotype or that caricature of a defendant to Bryan Kohberger, you're going to miss all the important information and facts and details underneath the surface that are going on that he has not been talking about. Like I said, he's been a good client as far as I can tell, by virtue of doing what he was told, as well as his family, and keeping their mouths shut.
Talk to me a little bit about the hair that was found in Ethan Chapin's hand. I know we talked about this originally. This is something that's gotten a lot of communication online and otherwise, and that the hair did not match Bryan Kohberger's, but there's some inconclusive facts out there. And again, because the prosecutors really didn't answer and because Kohberger didn't really allocute, there's still a lot of questions surrounding that hair. The police are saying it was tested, it wasn't Kohberger's, that it was Chapin's himself. Now, is that true, or do we have no idea who that hair belongs to?
Nobody who's under oath is saying that, and no report says that it belongs to Ethan. That is where our world exists. So anybody who's saying these is guessing. They're saying maybe it's him, maybe it's not. Just like Ann Taylor and her team said, they asked me, what if it belongs to somebody in the house? I'm like, well, maybe it does. We need to find out who that is and how it got in his hand, right? Because that would wreck the timeline. Well, let's talk about what does exist, okay? The hair, my first encounter was the hair on the bed frame. And it was like probably 20, 30 strands, about that long, coming off the bed frame, attached in blood on the bed frame with Ethan's in the
That's a lot.
imprint of Ethan's
20,
hand.
30 strands, that's a lot. Yeah.
It's way more than that. Okay. So, but that's what I could see. I can show you the pictures right now if you want to, but the pictures of the hair on the bed frame and that are also attached to the wall is even more. There's even a bigger clump from what's on the bed frame attached to the wall. When they pulled it away, there's a nice little streak of blood. When they pulled it away, there's hair attached to the wall and sealed to the wall with blood. And it's even more than that amount of hair. Then we have the hair that's in his hand, the phone was taken at the crime scene. Okay, so there's 3 different photos. So anybody who has not looked at all the evidence and who is speaking on issues that they don't know anything about because they're not a reconstructionist or not a forensic scientist, anybody who's saying that those hairs doesn't exist, it means that they haven't looked at the evidence and aren't aware of what's going on in the case. They viewed the case through their very narrow aperture. I did crime scene analysis and reconstruction, which means my hands were in everything. All right, so those photographs exist. And not only that, they were leaked online. There are people that have put these photographs online and put them into nice collages for everybody to see. So the first hurdle to clear is, do they exist? Yes. Then when the police wrote a report about it, it was described in the autopsy report and the police reports as debris in his hands. There was no debris in his hands. It was just human hair, right? A clump of it in his hands, then some stuck to the bed frame and then some stuck to the wall. That hair was of such significance that they sent it off to the FBI lab, who looked at it under a microscope and said, these hairs do not share similar characteristics. Therefore, there's no DNA testing needed to be done. And Bryan Kohberger is excluded. These are the facts. These are not Brent Turvey's speculations. This is what exists on the record. Now, have you...
Okay, so we're going to talk about these hairs in a second. But to finish up what I was saying about these text messages, I asked Cyree, I said, I just need to know. So if you want to talk about something, please release in the John O'Keefe case, the phone's movements. I'm not talking about GPS. I'm talking about actual phone's movements to say if a phone moves, it takes 19 steps, it takes 30 steps, it goes up such an elevation where it considers itself taking a flight of stairs. These are in the Apple Health data file folder. Okay. It's truly not health results or anything like that. That's just what they call it. Apple Health data. And I said, what are the movements of the phones? What are the meter movements? When are these phones moving? Okay. He said nobody was wearing, wearables. Like nobody, I'm not talking about wearables. I'm not talking, what are you talking about? I'm talking about these phones. I'm talking about the fact that Xana is on the floor and her phone, the phone that's next to her is Ethan's, not Xana's. Xana's phone is in the bed. Okay. And he's like, well, that's just so inaccurate. That's not so reliable. It's like, I'm like, what are you talking about? In the John O'Keefe case, it's exactly what they used to show John O'Keefe his phone and how many steps and blah, blah. What are you talking about? I need to know. And so when I was grilling him about this, I said, do you want to come out here and talk about overlays and blah, blah? I said, I want to talk about the text messaging that's going on. And during the time of the text messaging, what are the fucking phones doing, Cyree? Stop fucking with me. Put it out there. Do you guys see it yet? It's not out there. What time do those phones start moving? How many steps are being taken with these phones? I am not trying to correlate who is physically moving the phone. I want to know if the phones are moving and when are they moving. Because there should not be, according to Apple, and they all had iPhones, when you go down a flight of stairs, it does not register that. It's going to register the number of steps that you take, but it is not going to say that your phone traveled the flight of stairs. However, when you go up a flight of stairs, it'll say that your phone, because based on that elevation, that your phone took blank amount of steps, but it also went up a flight of stairs. It'll just say one flight of stairs. If Dylan did exactly what she said that she did, which was in her room, walking back over and taking a couple steps here and there, your phones are really good about breaking it up to know once you start and you stop for a little bit and you're sitting and you stop, then your phone registers that, okay, it's stopping that trip and it will start a new one. But if you take the steps within a certain period of time, you could then have something that would look like in a 9-minute period, it's going to calculate all of that during that whole 9 minutes. It's going to calculate all of that time period of however much your phone moved. But what Dylan should not ever have on her phone is her phone should have never went up a flight of stairs. If her phone elevates to that it would register a flight of stairs, that on its face is problematic, because that means that Dylan either from the second floor went upstairs, that's your flight. Because when you would come down to the second floor and it would go from the second floor down to the first floor, it's not going to register any of those. So you're going to have your one flight. Or it means that Dylan went downstairs and then came up one flight of stairs and then had to retreat back downstairs. And this is all the things I was trying to gauge and trying to put the timestamps of when these phones were moving. Same thing with the victims that are supposed to be sleeping. If they're sleeping, their phones are not going to be walking around. Whether it's them walking them around or anybody, those phones should not be moving. So I said, we did it in the John O'Keefe case. We used John O'Keefe's phone when it stopped moving. And that was used, when I say heavily, that was the most significant piece of evidence that the prosecution was the victim's phone. And when that victim's phone stopped moving, was like, he's knocked out cold, he's in the grass. How come in this case, I've never seen a case where they have totally, on every chance that they've ever had, they refuse to use the victim's phones for any circumstantial evidence in this case. Why? Why are they doing it? And it's very simple, because it does not support the state's narrative. It does not support the state's narrative. If Kaylee and Maddie's phones never move again after 2:53, it's one thing if you're going to sit here and tell me that they don't move again and no one's strolling on the internet. But wait, she was just shotgunning calls. Both of them, Kaylee and Maddie, shotgunning calls. Kaylee's calling her boyfriend repeatedly, or her ex-boyfriend repeatedly, right? But we forget that Maddie was calling somebody too. Maddie called Jack D, and Jack D's like, she never calls me in all the years that we've known each other. She's never done that. That's the most, when you want to talk about something that was strange that night, that's the most important thing that you'd put at the top, because she never does that. Number one. But that wasn't enough. Maddie's phone then calls Bethany and Xana, 252 and 253. Neither one of them answer. Why wouldn't Xana answer? She's supposed to be up waiting for DoorDash. Nor does she ever call her back, which is really, really important. She doesn't answer it and she doesn't call her back, but yet she's up chilling waiting for a DoorDash at 2:50. You know, she just made her order at 2:15, 2:53. But guess what Maddie does not do? Maddie calls Bethany and Xana. Why doesn't she call Dylan? Well, I don't call somebody if they're right next to me, or I don't call somebody if that's who the problem's with. She doesn't call. She calls. Those two people never call her back. Isn't it customary? Wouldn't you say it is a pattern of life of Madison Mogan to call her boyfriend before she would go to bed? Go and show me the weekends leading up to the murder. Go all the way back as far as you want. When does Maddie normally call her boyfriend? This is somebody who lives in Boise. Finally, we had an interview with a girl that was out with her boyfriend that night in Boise. And in that interview, she reveals that the last time that Jake talked to Maddie was at 6:30 or 6:50, like 6 or 7 at night. That doesn't vibe with me. Why did Maddie doesn't call her boyfriend before she goes to bed? Looks like she wasn't ready to go to bed yet. Looks like she was in the middle of doing something. Looks like something happened that she didn't get to that phone call yet. Also, he doesn't call her. Or did he? And she just didn't answer because she was already sleeping. We don't know the patterns, right? So again, I say, is it normally a pattern, okay, for Kaylee and Maddie to be shotgunning at the same time, blowing up people at the same time, and then for both of their phones to stop at the same time and not just stop making phone calls, but is there any scrolling on the internet? Like, why hasn't this shit surfaced? And then same thing with Ethan and Xana. How come Ethan's phone is next to Xana? Do you know what that would indicate? That 4:24 and 49-second call, 4:24 and 47 seconds. Do you know who could have potentially picked that up? Xana. Ethan's phone is next to Xana dead. That tells me the last person that was using that phone is consistent with being who? Xana. Why does nobody care about the movements of the victim's cell phones? I'm not asking for GPS. I literally only asked for what are the timestamps on when these cell phones are moving. I don't want anything more. And then whose cell phones are going up a flight of stairs from midnight until noon the next day? What times are they at? Because let's look and see if, you guys, let's put this to rest. If there's a dog missing, do you know how many steps you would be taking looking for your dog? Everybody wants to go with this whole, oh, the dog was missing. Let's look at the cell phones. I can tell you what, I'm not going to bed if I don't have my dog. And I was trying to get that through Chris's head when I was interviewing him. And I said, listen, that dog sleeps with with Kaylee. And when it doesn't sleep with Kaylee, it sleeps with Maddie. That dog does not get crated to go to bed. If those two girls went to bed in the same bedroom to plan to go to bed, where do you think the dog is going to be? In that room, potentially even in that bed. That dog is not going to be in Kaylee's room. That dog does not sleep alone. Then, if we could see people's phones, their movements, if it in fact Murphy was lost, let's see if let's see what time Maddie's phone's walking all over to be looking for the dog. Because remember, supposedly Maddie then swings by Bethany's room and it was like, hey, knocks on the door but doesn't really come in or anything like that, talks through it or something and says, hey, do you have Murphy? That's according to Bethany. And that doesn't come out right away. But yeah, it's just like, oh yeah, I don't know, she's asking me if I had Murphy or something. And since none of them know what each other sound like, how do we know that was even Bethany? I mean, that was even Maddie. Maybe that was somebody else that was asking that. But the bottom line is that don't you think these girls' phones would be showing that they're taking a ton of steps versus just sitting in bed, texting and shotgunning people phone calls because the phones aren't moving during the shotgunning and calling? Like they'd be frantically running and walking around all over to try to find their dog. So let's see if that's consistent with that. But they're hiding it all. Or rather I should say, they're not using in any evidence to show when the deaths occurred or potentially the deaths occurred for these victims. And to me, Cyray's like, everything that happened, and it's all consistent with, like everything else that they normally do. I said, interesting. I said, I doubt it. I'm going to call your bluff here. I doubt it. I doubt, okay, that Kaylee and Maddie show me when their phones ever stop at the same fucking time. Show me. For two people, for their phones to stop at the same exact time and not do anything with them. Show me when that's ever happened like that. If the dog was missing, why wasn't Kaylee texting Jack D and saying that? Instead of saying whatever she was saying. She didn't say, hey, wake up, the dog, I cannot find Murphy. Like, we need your help. Do you have the dog? Did the dog run over to your house? Nothing about the dog. There is no text messages about the dog between Kaylee and Jack D. I've never seen a case in my entire life where the victims' phones are not being used in showing the movements of them. And now everybody should know, and you need to spread it far and wide, that Ethan's phone was laying next to Xana, and that phone answered Dylan's Snapchat call. And I believe that that could potentially have been Xana answering that. And if that's the case, that's sad as fuck. That's sad as fuck. That means there's a conversation that you're having for 13 seconds with somebody that's dying. Do you understand that? When's anybody going to start talking about that shit? That's fucking crazy. And nobody wants to talk about it. Well, I have no problem about talking about it because let's talk about it. That's what the facts show. The facts show that Ethan Chapin's Snapchat was on his cell phone. His cell phone was right next to Xana on the floor in the middle of the room, according to, again, these investigators. And that Xana's phone was actually in the bed. And so if that's the case, if that is actually true, let me qualify my answer here. If that is true, that means Xana right by the phone of Ethan in the middle of the room, or she's laying in blood. And that was answered. And it was for 13 seconds. So take that and fucking smoke it and start talking about it. But Dylan definitely made that Snapchat call to Ethan's phone. And it was answered for 13 seconds.
Heard anything about that? Other than through me? No. No one wants to talk about it. Why? Because it would upend the case. It would upend everything. It would change everything we think about the timeline, the narrative, the interaction, who was in what room. But there's other evidence. There's down in the first floor bedroom, we have the jacket that didn't get collected or tested properly. We have a bloody bracelet that was on the floor that got picked up and moved by police and put on one of the desks and ignored and not collected. We have many different items of evidence like that weren't exactly examined or considered in the timeline because they got lost or forgotten or just plain ignored because they didn't fit the narrative. I come back to the same thing every time. When you want to know what happened, you examine the evidence. When you want to know what the truth is, you pursue that evidence to find out whose it is, how it got there, conditions of transfer, and what that means for the entirety of the reconstruction of the case. And there's not a real interest in doing that. In fact, they were so disinterested in doing that they demolished the house. I never even heard of that before, where you demolished the house.
I know, me neither.
And then they created this 3D model.
I don't know why people aren't talking about this. You guys want to act like somebody went in there and killed people one after another, after another, after another, after another. That's fine. I'll give you that. But this is why you have to pause, because it is just logic. It is absolutely, I want you guys to think about it like this. If you have a little toddler at home, okay, and you put them in their high chair for them to eat, and they get to just eat with their hands, think about the first birthday, go ahead, smash that cake. There's cake all over their hands, their face, everywhere, right? If you don't wash up your child before you put them down, anywhere that they go and touch, then it's all transferring, right? So here, you want the same person to kill all 4 people, and they didn't change not once. They had the same gloves on, the same knife, the same shirt, the same long sleeve, whatever, mask, everything. Your hands, those gloves would be so bloody, okay, after being upstairs, when you come downstairs to then go into the next bedroom because you're chasing Xana in there because, oh my God, she saw me, even though I'm like head to toe and in a balaclava, because she was right there up when, oh my God, she might call 911 and she sees me all bloody. I go in there. Do you understand that you are in the same gloves and then you have that weapon? That's the same weapon. And you're not going to, there is no evidence. They swabbed. There is no blood mixture between anybody upstairs and anybody downstairs. Those 2 victims, Ethan and Xana, and Kaylee and Maddie, there is no mixture. None, nowhere. No mixture. How is that possible? How is that possible? Ask yourself, you would keep swabbing. You would take the clothes of Xana, look at all the stab wounds, get in where the clothes are, swabbing all the, where the slits are in her sweatshirt. You would keep going and going and going until you found a mixture so that you can sell your theory to the jury, right? I would keep telling my crime scene people, hey, I got a job to do here. You want this to all to happen in 2 to 4 minutes, 10 minutes, one after another? Find me something in that bedroom that puts Maddie and Kaylee's DNA, blood in that room. There is no mixture. There is no mixture. There is no mixture of Kaylee's blood with Ethan's blood. Kaylee and Maddie mixed with Xana. There is no mixtures between the people upstairs and the people downstairs. And that should just, if that doesn't blow your mind, I mean, I don't know what would. But if you're the prosecution and you want to sell the story that one person did this, right? And then and then take the middle room, and now what you have going on in there, you have Ethan's blood solo, right? It's 99% to 1% of an unknown that's on the half pony wall, not diluted, and it hits the half pony top and the side. That's the inside to go down to the first floor. And it's it's just all Ethan, not diluted. And it was covered by a White Claw cardboard container that you would, like, if someone was coming home with their beers and I, put it on top of, like, do you know what that would signify? That Ethan's blood was already there before whoever put the cardboard White Claw with your case of 6 or 12 or however many go in there. It's already there. That's why I'm over here like, it's imperative to find out where truly Ethan and Xana were that night and what time they truly got home, to then truly be able to say what time they could have potentially become. If I'm not home until 4, that means nobody killed me, right? At 3 at my house, because they have me on camera and I'm doing whatever, right? When did Ethan and Xana get home? Because everybody wants to talk about the 2 upstairs roommates. They were the first ones to go. Maybe not. Maybe the reason that Maddie and Kaylee are calling everybody and freaking out is because, I don't know, they saw Ethan in the bedroom and Dylan was acting like a lunatic. And no, they didn't call the police right on their, they didn't know what to do. Who knows? I just want to know why nobody called Dylan that night. Kaylee was just calling Jack, and that was it. But Maddie was making some phone calls, calling Jack, and then decides to call. Okay, then I'll call, Xana and Bethany. It's like nobody called Dylan though. I don't know. It just looks like these 2 crimes could have potentially happened at 2 different times. And maybe somebody wasn't buying the story that somebody else was saying. And when maybe they weren't supposed to find anybody until later. And then stuff went a little haywire. I don't know. But it looks like there's 2 different crime scenes that could have potentially happened in a span of like an hour apart from each other. Okay. But at the end of the day, what I do not think happened here is that one person did this back to back, like they're saying, and we can't find any transfer from anybody upstairs' blood mixed with anybody downstairs. And you're trying to tell me that they wore the same gloves and had the same knife. And I'm going to tell you, I am not going to buy your Kool-Aid. Okay, I have a fucking brain, and that logically to me seems impossible. That's like you telling me my toddler, when their hands are covered in cake in their face and they're touching the walls, but yet there's no cake there. I'm going to tell you that my kid didn't touch the wall if there's no cake there and their hands are covered in cake. It's fucking crazy. But they refuse to talk about the true timeline about when Ethan and Xana got home. And if you start talking about the true timeline about when Ethan and Xana were home or when they were truly last seen, because guess who's missing? Not only is Ethan and Xana have a timeline gap, go ahead and add Dylan in a timeline gap. If you've been listening to the interviews, there is an interview, there's tons of them that are putting significant issues with Dylan's whereabouts. And the cops, we can't find, where was Claire? Where was Gideon? Where were all these people that were supposed to be hanging out with Dylan? Where are their interviews? to say, yeah, I was doing this is what I was doing and blah, blah, blah. You know, I cannot agree more with what Dr. Brent Turvey is saying, that nobody truly investigated this case. And you need to look at everything, examine it to find the answers, to get the facts. And if someone just says something to you, okay, they can say that, but then you have to vet it. And they're not lying maybe on purpose. They were drinking or whatever. You have to get their phones. If you're interviewing them and they're in Boise, when they're looking at their phones, it's an hour off, you fucking idiots. So they're telling you a time that's in their phone. Oh, well, this actually though happened because that was Moscow time, so that's off an hour. I mean, it's ridiculous what happened in this case. They suck. They are horrible at their jobs. And they had a horrible leader. And just here we are. And the victims' families have to go through this. Well, yeah, the guns office has been telling us for a while how bad Bill Thompson and what he's done here. But I just want to know when you're going to start asking the questions of, if they're doing all this, why? When are we going to start asking the question of why? Why? Who deals with the devil? Who makes a plea deal in the first place with somebody that killed like 4 kids like this? What the hell's going on? Idaho acts so big and so bad. You guys are the biggest fucking snowflakes I've ever fucking seen. It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. They call it Trump country. My fucking ass. Plea dealing. Everything's a plea deal in Idaho.
Model of it that I went out again to examine and took my photographs and did a 3D scan of it. It doesn't even match the interior of the house. It's full of incorrect access, incorrect sizes. It says big sign under, not the scale. They wanted to use it as a trial exhibit. Didn't have anything in it. Didn't have anything to do with the case. Just an approximation of maybe what the house might have looked like inside. We're not sure.
I'm going to say that I feel like no matter which way you fall on this, right? Whether you think Bryan Kohberger did it, whether you think he didn't do it.
People shouldn't even be thinking that way. When people ask me that, I have no opinion on if he did it or not, because I have no fucking clue, and nor should anybody. We have not seen anything in this case. There was a fucking gag order. Everything's been sealed. Anybody that can tell you that somebody is so fucking guilty but hasn't seen anything is an absolute fucking ass clown, and you should laugh in their face. Laugh at them. Laugh at them. There has been nothing. Nothing has been shown. Nothing. I have no opinion. No opinion on if he's guilty or innocent. What I have an opinion on is the fact that this is not how our criminal justice system operates. This is not how we do things. People do not lie in probable cause affidavits. People do not get caught lying and then nothing happens. This is shit. And I believe, and I have an opinion on this, that yes, Bryan Kohberger, you're going to kiss away that evidence that you had because you obtained it illegally. Illegally. You did not use the IgG in the probable cause at all. You lied about how you got to him. Made shit up. And then Payne actually told the truth on the stand and said, we did not know his name until 12/19. Where'd the tip come from? How did you even know his name? IgG. So none of this, there was actually a report done by WSU on 11/29. That's all fucking lies. There is no fucking formal report. And ready for this bombshell? I went out and got Daniel Tanego and Curtis Whitman's employment records for their time cards for the night of the murder. And I went all the way back 3 months because I wanted to see what time. Were they daytime people? Were they nighttime people? What shifts did they work? Do you want to know the guy that says that he found Bryan Kohberger's card? Do you want to know what he did on the night of the murder? He lied. He lied. He leaves work at 4:30 a.m. He's supposed to work until 6 or 7. Leaves, he says, at 4:30 a.m. I went back and I checked all the months before that I went back. He's never leaving work at 4:30 a.m. Do you want to know what he wrote, though, as to why he left at 4:30 a.m.? He wrote that he left after the football game. After the football game let out, and, things have died down a little bit. I left after the football game. Do you guys understand that no football game occurs between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m.? Everybody understands that. WSU played on 11/12/2022 at noon that day. Noon. He thought that he could pull a fast one. And that when people saw the 4:30, that maybe they would just slip their mind that it was, PM and not AM. The game was at noon. Lana, you're lying. No, I'm not. Go check my lives. I put the receipts out. I put out his whole entire work schedule. That's what he wrote. Curtis Whitman, the guy that found Bryan Kohberger's car, is leaving work on the night of the murders at 4:30. Who knows? Maybe even left way before that. But he filled in after the fact for the comment and put that he left work at 4:30 a.m. because it was after the football game let out. That is a fucking lie. There is no football games that happen at 1 o'clock in the morning until 3 or 4. It is absolute craziness. I've been supplying nothing but receipts. The night of the murder, do you want to know what those undercovers were lying about? On how many people? None of them are supposed to be working a plainclothes shift because they didn't have enough people. You're not supposed to work plainclothes operations and take federal grant money when you're working a normal shift. The people that the family should be suing if they want to sue WSU, fine. For them not to put down the Moscow Police Department is absolutely disgusting because they should have had 5 patrol cars out roaming around, deterring people from coming and trying to do anything, right? When you see a cop car, oh, wait, Do you want to know what they did that night? Because they were greedy and wanted to make extra money and get paid time and a half and get money for, They took patrol vehicles that should have been roaming around working. They took cops out of them, put 2 cops into a undercover plainclothes little Ford fucking Fusion. And these were officers that were on the schedule for their regular shift. I caught them double dipping in the federal grant money. Did a FOIA request with that. Well, me and one other person did it together to be specific, okay? We did a FOIA request, Moscow Police Department. Not only did they try to say that in order to get that information, it would be $2,300, simultaneously, we FOIA'd the agency that was supplying the drug policy people of Idaho. We FOIA'd them at the same time to get the information to see who's lying here. We're going to get both because they have to audit all that stuff. They have to track everything, who they pull over, what they're doing, all this crazy shit. It's grant money. It's you can't, it's a document. Do you know what fucking Moscow did? Well, they tried to charge us $2,300. We got them all the way down to $300, $400. Still fucking absolute. I cannot wait to sue these people. ODP for the same information and more, $273 for every year that we asked for. Moscow gives us 38 pages. ODP gives me 300 pages and 180 of them were just emails. Eric Warner, who's taking care of it and who's overseeing it, Eric Warner, who's also at the first responding officer. This fat fuck, he got paid for 3 hours of work, 3 hours of work to literally Xerox copy 38 to 42 pages. It took him 3 hours to do that. 3 hours. That's what he was, Eric Warner, 3 hours. I was like, what is he doing? It's in a binder. You take it out, you put it in a machine, You make the copy, which you probably already even just sent to ODP people. So just send us over those files that are already done in PDF and they're electronic. He pulled out 2 sheets of paper. And what 2 sheets of paper were they? The 11/13 timeline or the 11/13 date, 11/12 to 11/13. It was the results of whatever they did that day, that night, and who got paid and how many hours they worked. Pulls that from the record. ODP, obviously, they handed over the record and then some. We compared the 2 files. The only way that ODP could ever have anything is because it's whatever Moscow sends them, because they get reimbursed. And so Moscow has to send them everything quarterly. And so every 3 months they have to report. And so they have to fire off all this stuff. And then ODP just makes a file. So everything that ODP has is because of Moscow sending it to them. Moscow had no idea that I was going to simultaneously request the other records to be able to show that they are fabricating and falsifying FOIA requests to try to get out and around everything to do with the night of the murders. They tried to lie about who was working, so much so that they told the ODP people to only reimburse them for 1 worker. And they decided to do that at the last minute before they sent it to ODP, and they took off 4 other people's names. They erased 4 people from the spreadsheet. And it doesn't make any sense, right? And so all they left was Jacob Tisdall working the plainclothes shift. Well, Nate Rosendahl was working it. Why isn't his name on there? They erased his name. Because it was proof that they were double dipping, number 1, but also it was proof that there was more people that were working, and they tried to take them off because that was the only evidence that there was a plainclothes operation going on that involved more than what they were saying. But they asked for extension to file that back in 2023. And so they filed that late, and at the last minute, they were pulling people's names. So these people are all full of shit. They're lying. And why? Why? If it's some sick little bastard named Bryan Kohberger who's a piece of shit and doing all this crazy shit, and he's just so fucking guilty and there's just all this evidence against him. Why are you doing all of this? People with nothing to hide don't do this shit. People that have nothing to hide don't try to extort you for $2,300 to pay for a fucking FOIA request for 38 pages. They tried to say that it would be 13 hours of a lawyer to go through Eric Warner's 38 pages of fluff. These people are high off their own farts, okay? And then when I told them and said, hey, you guys over here, hello, we got the file and this is missing and this is missing. And he said, we don't have those records. They just created a new record. They literally just made up, oh, okay, here, we'll just go ahead and make a new record. And I'm like, wait, what? They just created a new document and then sent it to us. I mean, what we're about to show in a courtroom is absolutely insane, to the point that I know that Ann Taylor wasn't doing any of this shit. We found that there was a white/silver Elantra that night with 4 girls in it from driving around, smoking fucking weed, doing whatever, but they were pulled over at 1:43 in the morning until 2:25 a.m. And it was a 2013 Hyundai Elantra silver, that light silver, almost looking like white. We have pictures from it. We can see the trunk. We asked for the body cam. This is the night of the murders. There's an Elantra. These are sorority girls in Elantra, hotboxing it. Nobody has ever talked about this ever because they were trying to hide this incident report. We just got our hands on it a couple weeks ago. not only did this occur, but then they destroyed the body cam. They just destroyed the body cam. And I'm over here like, wait, what? They said, oh, our retention record. So if it's after so long, we can start destroying things. We needed to see this body cam because we want to see the interaction with these girls. We want to get a good look at this fucking car, right? Because white and silver look the same on that stupid camera that's out there on 111. It looks at, we got to see what it looks like for the Ridge Road. This is crazy. And I'm over here saying, there's no way that Aunt Taylor has this stuff because you can't destroy if it has something to do with this case. Like, how are you just destroying body camera? There was 2 sets of body cam because it was 2 dudes that were working that had body cam on. Do you understand that they locked that report? We tried to get it in 2022 and 2023, and they were acting like it didn't exist, that there was no incident report like that with that number. And I'm like, they go in order. These fucking pieces of shit. How does a cop not ever write up a report after the fact when they're looking for an Elantra, right? How come a cop involved in the Moscow Police Department, that this wouldn't be a tip, you sons of bitches? How would this not be an internal tip to say, oh my God, you guys are looking for, we pulled one over that night. Hello? I should write up a report that's saying, like, we need to talk to these girls. We got to look into this car. This is fucking asinine. But why I believe that Aunt Taylor doesn't have it is because they were able to destroy this body cam. Unless there's a copy of it. But this is nuts. And it's sorority girls, you guys. These are all sorority girls that are friends with all those girls. And we don't even know who the car belongs to because the way that they did what they did. And then, are you guys aware that during the time of the crime that they're saying from 407 to 423, when you take the entire radio log that night, and this is all the radio that happens through the police departments with the dispatch, and you look at the entire night, there is something happening with either somebody saying something over the radio, they're at an incident, they're doing something. Very rarely do you see like multiple minutes go by when something's not happening on that night, just like any other night. Well, what are the odds that on the night of the murders from 407 and 423 to 432, so like 407, wow, like that's like during the time of the crime, like that's during the time of the crime almost, right? Yeah, it is radio fucking silent. Nobody is doing anything. In fact, the 2 undercovers, the one guy's never heard from again after 3:52. It's like poof, gone. But he's supposed to be working until 6 a.m. And he doesn't do anything with his mobile laptop. He's not doing any work. And then Nate Rosendahl just starts making stuff up when he's just like, I'm going to just run these people's names again. What? People that you've already pulled over and dealt with way earlier, why are you running their names? Why are you doing inquiries into these people's names? And why did you do the first one right before at like 407 and then you stopped for all the way until 432 and then you started writing again? What were you doing? What were all the cops doing? They all showed that they were all at the station. And that's not what's supposed to be happening. So I have no idea. I mean, it's going to come out when I'm writing a book. Fuck this. I'll get it out one way or another. But these are anomalies that like, wow, this is crazy. Wow. During the time of the crime, there is not a time that you can look at the whole night where there's that large of a gap in time when nothing is happening with the radio, nothing is happening with not just the radio, but one of the police officers using their laptop that's in one of their cruisers to like look something up or say that they're en route somewhere, like nothing. It's unreal. It's absolutely unreal. It's radio silent. It's during the time of the murder that they're saying, when the murder happened. I personally believe that it's right after it, and it's like somebody let somebody know something and then they went over there and they're like, whoa. Anyways, I will leave you guys with that. This case is saddle up because it's just getting started.
No matter what you think, I think everyone that's paid attention to this case has always wanted to see a trial here, because a trial was either going to expose that there was or there wasn't enough evidence, and a trial could potentially answer the question why or how. And so no matter how you feel about this, no one got those answers. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see what Judge Hippler does and see if we ever get those answers. But no matter what happens, I'm sure, Dr. Turvey, I will want to talk to you about it. So I hope you'll be back with me, and I thank you so much. Thank you for joining me for another